let's get started. Kara, are you ready to go? Okay. Let me situate myself. I'm getting old. I can't read that close. Sorry, my mic is on. Darn it. All right. All right, let's get started today. This public regular meeting of the Board of Education for March 4, 2025 is called to order. All items being considered this evening are posted on the PPS website on the Board of Meetings tab. This meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV Services website and on Channel 28 will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the district for replay times. Good evening, welcome. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to join us and caring about public schools. Just a few housekeeping reminders before we start. We ask that everyone here please treat each other with respect. We're excited that you're here. Also, if you have signs or banners, just be aware of people behind you. Try to keep them at chin level so people behind you can see. Do not block the aisleways for safety reasons, and yeah, just in general, be mindful of each other. Thank you. All right, to start off, we'll begin with a resolution that recognizes March 3rd through 7th as Classified and Non-Represented Employee Appreciation Week. Superintendent Armstrong, would you like to introduce this?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening. I want to acknowledge and celebrate the dedicated employees who are often the unsung heroes of our school district, our classified staff and non-represented employees. Their work is absolutely vital to the day-to-day success of our schools, from the custodians who ensure our campuses are clean and safe, to the bus drivers who safely transport our students, to the nutrition service workers who keep stomachs full, to the office staff who keep our operations running smoothly, and every other staff employee that fits within that group. They all play a vital and pivotal role in creating an environment where students can thrive. And so when I'm out in the schools and walking through the buildings, I see the sense of care and pride and dedication. And so we have our Chief of Human Resources, Sharon Reese, here to say a few words to introduce the resolution before you tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, School Board. It's my favorite time of the year. Before the school board this evening is the resolution to recognize our Classified and Non-Represented Employee Appreciation Week. It's an honor to appear before you this evening on this topic and celebrate the tremendous work of our classified and non-represented employees in Portland Public Schools. It's no exaggeration to say that these dedicated individuals are the heroes, the unsung heroes of our school community, and it's important that we recognize the invaluable roles they play in shaping the educational experiences for our students. In addition to the resolution, in the board books is our Years of Service Awards, which recognizes employees at 5-year service marks. And we have employees all the way up to, it's about 15, 16 pages of employees who've reached those 5-year service marks. And we have a group of 4 employees who reached the 40-year service mark this year. And I would like to read their names. Alicia Fecker, Director of IT Enterprise Applications in our Information Technology team, 40 years of service. Beverly Gregg, Nutrition Services Lead at Vernon, 40 years of service. Bruce Krausert, Electronics Technician in Maintenance Services, 40 years of service. And Mary Collins, Educational Assistant in our PK Early Learners program at Clarendon. You can do it. Give it up. I'm a non-rep employee and a mom in the district, and in both of those roles, I'm witness to the extraordinary dedication our employees have to our students and our mission. And I'm pleased to present this resolution to you today. I also want to plug for you and for the school district that we have the Torch Awards, another opportunity to recognize our employees coming up. Our nomination process is open from yesterday through the beginning of spring break. And as you know, we launched the Torch Award to honor excellence and recognize employees and their contributions and service to the district. So please take a look at that and spread the word about those nominations. We will be celebrating those employees on Thursday, March 22nd. So on behalf of the entire Portland Public Schools community, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of our classified and non-represented employees. Thank you for the work that you do every day. You're not only essential, but irreplaceable. And we are deeply appreciative of your unwavering commitment to our students and our schools. Thank you. Yes, clap. There's not enough applause for these employees.
Thank you. I just also want to take a moment to acknowledge we have Kara Bradshaw here, who is also celebrating 10 years with PPS. We are incredibly fortunate to have you working here. I am pretty sure that everything would have fallen apart years ago if you weren't here. So thank you. And I just also want to present this 10-year lanyard for your 10 years of service. I asked for a big giant gold medallion, but I don't think we could afford it. So yeah, well, let's get this on the table first. Do I have a motion and a second to put resolution 7053, classified and non-rep appreciation week 2025?
So moved. Second.
Director Split moves and Director DePass seconds. Any board discussion?
I just want to echo all the great things we know that these employees do throughout the district. Record, I spend a lot of time in an elementary school in our district, and you see every day the things that everybody from our school secretary to cafeteria workers, our custodians, although I think our cafeteria workers are represented. But anyway, but just the work that everybody does, that's not necessarily like the folks who get all the glory, I guess, if that makes sense. So I just want to say thank you specifically to the ones that I know at my school, but to everybody who does those same jobs at every school and here in the district office itself. Thanks.
I just want to join in with the appreciation, just looking through the list, I think, of how many students they've impacted in a positive way, both from the long tenured, but also the 5 years. Because we want to be an employer of choice, and it's clear we have employees who have dedicated, and these are just the milestone years, so we have, people who are between the 35 and 40, so other people who have really committed their whole professional career to serving our students and the school district, so it's humbling to read. And I want to just thank Kara especially, because I'm sure in your role it's like 10 years, but that's not really dog years. Sometimes I'm sure it seems like more than 10 years. So thanks for everything you do to keep things moving for us and the board and the school district.
We'll just jump in really quickly before we clap again and just recognize the lunch lady at MLC who is so amazing, Ella, who passed away a few years ago. But just thinking about all these teenagers running around a building and what she did for us. And also want to thank Kara especially too, because you probably feel like, oh my God, I've been here 10 years. There's nothing like to make you feel old like being someplace rooted for 10 years. So congratulations.
Yeah, and on behalf of our students, I just want to thank our amazing staff for their dedication to our students and families. I know as students we don't thank you enough, but on behalf of all of our students, we really thank you and appreciate you all.
said, everyone. All right, the board will now vote on Resolution 7053, resolution to recognize classified and non-represented employee appreciation week, March 4 to 7, 2025. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Student Representative Katsavi, your vote.
A strong yes.
Abstentions? Great. Resolution 7053 is approved by a vote of 6-0 with Student Representative Katsavi unofficially voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I forgot about, I just want to interrupt really quick in our agenda. This was going to go in the opening, and I just spaced it, so I'm just going to say it right now, just really quick. I just want to there's been a lot of questions about the types of meetings and what the differences are between all of them, and I just kind of want to just take 5 minutes. I'm just going to kind of quickly review meetings and kind of meeting procedure really quick. The 3 types of meetings that we work with: regular meetings, which is today, and then we have executive sessions, and then we also have work sessions, and just kind of general guidelines so that the board members, if you need a review, or public that is, most of these questions come from the public, are a little confused. Regular meetings are typically meetings that we make decisions. Those are the types of things that we vote on things and have debates about, whether it's policy or resolutions that come up, or business items. The next classification of meetings is work meetings, and work meetings are typically not for decision making times. The only decisions we make during work meeting are typically consent agendas or first readings of policies.
Work session.
Yeah, the work session. Sorry. Work session. Thank you. This is also a time where the board gets a chance to kind of review data, have discussions about ongoings and issues in the district, also times to raise new ideas, but it typically is not a meeting that we make decisions, except for, the consent agenda. Last type of meeting that we typically have is a executive session. Executive sessions tend to be sometimes it will be private, sometimes usually media is welcome, but may not be reported on it. Executive sessions are sessions that no decisions can be made, because Oregon public law, decisions have to be made in public. Executive sessions are typically, most often are situations where, again, no decision from the board is made, but it is more of what I call a professional courtesy, where the district may be making a decision and wants to just let the board know that these decisions are being made, and they might lead to a decision that the board needs to make. Like, for example, if it involves approving a contract later on, when we're talking about things, the tail end of this decision. So those are just kind of general overview of the 3 types of meetings. I also want to kind of remind everyone as well about meeting procedure. One of the things, and I take very seriously my role as chair, is to ensure that everyone on the board has an equal voice and say and ability to voice and feel heard. It is my job to facilitate the meetings accordingly. So I just want to kind of, excuse me, go over one of our board policies, board policy 1.70.011-P. Under 9H, it says, in matters of parliamentary procedure not covered by these rules and regulations, provisions of the Roberts Rules of Order newly revised shall prevail. And I know that not every board member has been trained on Roberts Rules of Order, but one that I would like to implement, or re-implement actually, is the proper word to use it, is Roberts Rules of Order. I wrote it down, so I'll just read it up straight up. No one is entitled to the floor, quote, no one is entitled to the floor a second time in debate on the same motion on the same day as long as any other member who has not spoken on the motion desires the floor. And what that typically means is just basically, you shouldn't be expecting, you shouldn't speak out more than 2 times unless everyone has a chance to speak already in a debate. And the reason for this is just to make sure that everyone on the board has, feels like they have space and has the opportunity to chime in when they need to, instead of having to, assert themselves. Again, it is my job to make sure that everyone has an equal voice on this board. So I will be enforcing that to the best of my ability. All right, next up, now that that's said, we are now moving to the a brief update on the 2025 general obligation bond. So, as many of you seen on your seats, we do have so just kind of quick update. The school district has provided a one-pager, and some people have seen this already. Just kind of goes over really quick. We also have the campaign is also up and running, also has a one-pager. If you like to see the campaign website, which is a separate entity to PPS, the website is yespdxschools. Is it .com? I should have prepared and done my homework. Yes, yes, PDX Schools, and currently right now we are trying to get the endorsements of all our PTAs in all of our schools. Our goal is to get at least 90% of PTAs to endorse this bond. We are again trying to remind board members, if you can please talk to your PTAs in your zones to have them endorse. One little quick update, as I found out the hard way, a lot of PTAs don't meet in March because of spring break. So one workaround to this, and what some schools have already done, is that the PTA's boards can vote by email. And that is a completely acceptable way to vote. So if you contact their president and ask them, hey, can you vote on endorsing the bond, you can vote by email, and typically they send an email to all their board members, and they just vote by email and they can approve it. Let someone on the campaign know, or me if you don't know who's on the campaign, or Director Brim Edwards, and they will send the proper paperwork to the people. Thank you. We're very excited for the bond. Does anybody else have any updates they would like to add?
I'm going to raise some issues when we have the actual contract discussion later on tonight. Of some things I think that we need in order to have a successful bond effort. And also, I would just say we're hoping also for 100% participation from the boards to help us get this over the finish line. So I'm sending appreciation to the board members and the staff who have already sort of financially helped out. And again, I think we're off to somewhat of a slow start, but happy that we've got a two-pager now.
Go ahead. Thank you.
I just want to let folks know that I'll be holding weekly coffees to answer questions about the bond throughout the district. This week, Saturday from 2 to 3, I'll be at the Blue Kangaroo in Selwood. Come on down and ask me your questions, and I look forward to hearing from folks throughout the district as I make my little tour.
My little thing, I look forward to getting the endorsements from all of our student councils across PPS to have them help support our bond.
And one last announcement, if there's any questions, the principals will also be receiving a toolkit too that has the information and guidance about the bond as well. All right. Moving on. Next up, we have the superintendent's report. Would you, Superintendent Armstrong, take it away.
Excellent, thank you, and I believe we're going to have Ms. Bradshaw launch that and navigate for us. All right, well, I will just jump right on into the fact that we are in March, and we are in celebrating women's history. Next slide, please, thank you. It's a time to recognize and honor the incredible women who have shaped our world, our communities, and our place here in Portland Public Schools, from our staff to our teachers to our administrators. We see you, we celebrate, we're excited, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize women's history. Next slide, celebrating, as you already heard, classified and non-rep Employee Appreciation Week. You know, it's a really hard time right now, as we know that staffing sheets were delivered to schools last week, and the reality of our $40 million deficit is real in many of our spaces. And you know, it pushed us through the budgeting process to really think about how we divvy out our resources. And so, not only do I just want to recognize classified and non-rep Employee Appreciation Week, but I also just want to recognize that this is also a hard time in our schools and what many of our staff are grappling with as we work our way through a budgeting season. I'm also hopeful that there'll be some response at the state level, as I was down in Salem yesterday and had an opportunity to talk with an elected official, and not my first time down in Salem, and lots of conversations with elected officials, and even some moves for unfunded mandates, raising the cap for special education. If those two things were true, we would not be in a reduction this year, and so we just want to continue to encourage folks to advocate for all of our staff that we are potentially losing, and just wanted to pause and say that. The next thing, lifting literacy. So just a couple of updates on the literacy campaign. We definitely continue with literacy at the heart of what we do, and so we know that as we lift literacy, we're lifting student success and voice and choice. And so there's a couple things I want to highlight if we work our way through the other slides. Oregon Battle of the Books is well on its way. So each PPS school crowns a winning team, which advances to mini regionals at McDaniel High School on March 15th. And so top teams from there will compete against other districts statewide to determine winners at the elementary, middle, and high school level. So we're excited about that. And then the Chapman Challenge, as you see in those pictures up there, staff issued a bold challenge to their students. It's a reading competition against their own teachers. And so for every 15 minutes a student reads, they earn a Swift. It's a paper bird that gets added to the chimneys in the hallways. And so if they reach the top before their teachers, then they win a school-wide camp out celebration, and it's complete with s'mores and stories. And so every K through 2 student received a copy of Just Ask. 3rd through 5th graders received the Harlem Charade, and all students were given the 3 questions book to keep and to read. So we're excited about that. And then another thing that I just want to, we talk about appreciating employees. I just want to lift up all those folks that came together to help us pack up the van for our bookmobile. We had many of our staff come together and do sorting and I would say sorting through the books that were either donated or given to us by age and genre. And so on the next slide, just excited to show the pictures of the bookmobile that was at OMSI this past Sunday, and it was a great celebration of literacy and book giveaway. The books were free. Many of the kiddos were excited sorting through, looking for their books, and so we know that literacy work starts in our schools, starts at home, starts in libraries, starts in classrooms. And so we were very appreciative to lean into that. The bookmobile will be making its way around the district through the month of March, and then we end again at OMSI on April 5th, I believe, where we will have the van out again and celebrating families and giving away tickets to access OMSI and some other great things. So super excited. Thank you for those of you that I saw there. Really appreciated that. Director Hollins and Director Split, appreciate you. And then just moving on quickly, just you already heard the update about the one-pager. I want to continue to lift up that the bond has been referred, and we have a ballot that's coming in May, and we are really excited about the opportunity to rebuild and modernize our buildings with educational materials and technology, and just super hopeful to what this can bring to all of our Portland communities across the city. And lastly, just a note in QR codes where you can follow us along on all the projects that we have underway. There are the QR codes for Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And so we will also have these slides posted on our website. And just excited. Together we rise. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Representative Consavi.
Right. Well, good evening, everyone. Before I share my student rep report, I would like to share a video just highlighting the amazing work our CTE students have been sharing and doing in their classrooms. All right, thank you. And I just want to give you huge thanks to our CTE and AP and IB director for helping make this happen. As we all know, we are in a budget. Going to the next physical school year, we will be having to make severe cuts around staffing, around our programs for our students, and around things like CTEs, which we truly see our students participating and truly, I think we talked about this in earlier board meetings, but we have an issue of attendance. Sometimes students are not feeling the need to come to school, or there may be obstacles. I believe programs like CTE are what gives our students the reasons to be at school. And when our state's thinking about cutting funding from our schools, this will truly impact them and our staff and our families. Yesterday, myself, the District Student Council, and 30 high school students attended our Day of Action. We have our annual one. This is our third one. And this is our record-breaking amount of over 30 students who were able to participate in advocacy for educational funding. Let's give a round of applause for that. Our students had a great time speaking with legislators, legislative leadership, just sharing their voices and also advocating for PPS's legislative priorities. It was amazing seeing students advocate for not only themselves but for their peers, because we believe providing quality education to each and every student should be a priority, and it should be a priority for our governor and our legislators. So today, I publicly call on our governor, our legislators, and our legislative leadership to prioritize our students because, in the state of Oregon, we are in an educational funding crisis, and they are the only ones who can change this situation we are currently in. And then my next thing is, across the district, I've been hearing concerns around lunchtime and the menu. Students are saying they don't have enough time to eat, lunch lines are too long, and we know when students are hungry, they truly can't get work done. So I look forward to working with the superintendent or the policy committee chair to find ways to how we can create solutions to these issues, because I believe it's important we provide nourishing meals to our students that they truly enjoy, and also we give students enough time to eat their food. All right. Yeah. And this Friday, the District Student Council and myself are glad to announce our annual PPS Student Summit, which will be at Marshall Campus, where we'll have over 200 students attending workshops ranging from Know Your Rights, Student Safety, Title IX, and CT, and way more than that. We'll also have an opportunity for our students to engage in a town hall with our board chair, our vice chair, and our new board member, Christy Split. That way they're able to voice their concerns and perspectives and questions directly to our board members and for them to get some answers from that. Because over my course of time as student representative, I've always heard if there's a disconnect with our board and the district. I believe when we're creating spaces for our students to elevate their voices, that's how we start closing that division and really building a community and knowing that our district isn't just the superintendent, board members, but our district is our community and students. So together we rise, and thank you everyone.
Well said. Let's bring recess back. All right, next up we have public comments. First up, we'll start out with our student comments. Ms. Bradshaw, do we have, oh, before I say that, thank you, JJ, that was awesome. Do we have any students sign up?
We do. We have Evan Jueneman.
All right, while you're making your way up, I just want to kind of take this time to kind of go over some guidelines for public comment. We really value and thank you for taking your time out of your day to provide your comments, or your input, especially from our students, really informs and improves our work. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and reflection. Our board office may follow up on board-related issues raised during public testimony. We request that complaints about individual employees be directed to the superintendent's office as a personnel matter. For materials that you would like the board receive, handouts, pictures, etc., please do not come to the dais. Please hand them over to our board manager or Ms. Bradshaw over there, and she will distribute them to us. If you have any additional materials or items you would like to provide the board or superintendent, we ask that you email them to publiccomment, all one word, at pps.net. Please make sure that when you begin your comment, you clearly state your name and spell your last name. You will have 3 minutes to speak. You will hear a sound after 3 minutes, which means that you will have 30 seconds to wrap up your comment. Thank you. You may begin when you're ready.
My name is Evan Juneman, Junemann, and I am currently a senior at Cleveland High School, the co-president of the Disabled and Neurodivergent Student Union, and a member of the Design Advisory Group for Cleveland High School's modernization. I am so happy to see continued progress towards a modernized school. More importantly, I'm glad to see Design Advisory Group and community outreach sessions resuming. Thank you, Director Brim Edwards, for attending the DAG session last week. It's great to see board members there. Now, more than ever, is the most important time to listen to community feedback as we decide where to save money on the design. Because in my experience in listening sessions and from statements made by the board and superintendent, it seems that the PBS board is interested in reducing the cost of modernizing the remaining high schools, which, despite good progress made on this, may still affect certain programs at these schools. As a student in special education and with many friends in the arts, I am concerned that these facilities may be most affected by attempts to reduce the costs of the new schools, as they are often the first to face cuts in school budgeting. I understand that cost saving is a key part of the design process and that measures have been and are already being taken, but it's important that we make sure that we are giving students and educators the building that they clearly need to support quality education for all students. I want this board to prioritize student success over massive cost savings in building design because that is the best way to improve outcomes and enrollment in the long run. The voters, soon to include myself, want to vote yes on nice, new, modernized high schools in May to see the fruits of all the labor and advocacy of our school communities. The arts, which are so often affected most by cost savings, are strong at Cleveland. We have an amazing theater, choir, and band. These programs deserve top quality facilities because if they can succeed right now, in spite of 100-year-old rooms, we can only imagine what they will do with modern, adequate facilities. We need a school that not only meets EdSpec, but also meets the unique needs of the Cleveland community. I also want to make it clear to the board that our building most certainly does need programs like a teen parent center and health center. These programs provide essential services to students and ought to be included in the final design. I'm excited to see a final design presented to the board rather soon, and I want this board to keep in mind students' needs and the unique programs and strengths of Cleveland when they make a final decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan, for continuing to show up even on school nights.
Yes, thank you.
Also, nice sweatshirt. Con team alum right here too.
Sorry, I wasn't referring to tonight. I was referring to the, that wasn't a slide. I was referring to the Design Advisory Group meeting.
Well, I take back my compliment about the sweatshirt then.
All right. Next up, we. Oh. Okay, now I'll read this slowly. Next up, we have. No, just kidding. The general public comment and comments on the consent agenda. Because the consent agenda is the last item for consideration this evening, I have asked those who are signed up to write comments on the consent agenda be allowed to provide their comments now. Ms. Bradshaw, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do. Just a second, I navigate it away. We have Dr. Effie Greathouse, Aisha Belduboy, Scott Bailey, and Aaron Frazier. Just on the consent agenda?
No, we can call them all up, or
Okay.
just
Yeah.
let's call them all up. All right, same guidelines as before apply. Just also a quick reminder about if you're being for public comments, make sure that you do not violate FERPA laws and any identifiable things of our students. This includes testimonies using information that anything that's identifiable, especially in our school community, by use of direct or indirect linkages such as school grade, special education, or other status. So just a quick reminder about that. I'd say just go in the order that you were called. So, thank you.
Dr. Effie Greathouse, Greathouse. Thank you, Dr. Armstrong, for working so quickly to reorient the district towards collaboration with the community on air quality. In the past, we've seen families and scientists bring air quality problems and solutions to the district or its contractors, only to be met with silence or worse. I do work off and on for community groups in fence line communities around the country. These are communities in Louisiana, in the Bay Area, Pennsylvania, who live right next door to oil refineries. Most communications from PPS on air quality issues in the past few years have been a mix of denial, dismissiveness, and misinformation that felt and sounded the same as the kinds of spin that oil companies use when they respond to fence line communities. I am so heartened by the very different and positive experience this time. Dr. Armstrong in particular listened, responded, and took action to shift towards a more open and collaborative approach. Our group is going to reorient ourselves towards ongoing dialogue with the district too, and that includes that we will continue public commenting on a more regular basis. I also want to bring a specific problem and solution to this forum tonight. Last month, this remind message went out to the entire district about how PPS manages winter illness. There is nothing about air purifiers in this message. It's all washing hands and cleaning surfaces. This message shows that we have not learned the lessons of the pandemic in our district about how respiratory viruses spread through the air. A lesson identified by Dr. Joseph Allen's keynote at the White House Summit on Indoor Air Quality is that cleaning the air needs to be the first line of defense against respiratory illness. We learned that flu is 50% airborne. So when a message like this is really only talking about preventing spread from surfaces, we are leaving out the prevention of half of flu transmissions. We learned that we have a whole new way to get sick. The new coronavirus in the mix does not spread through surfaces. It spreads by us breathing in air full of infectious aerosols. We learned from research in Italy that we can cut virus transmission in schools by 82% when we clean classroom air at a rate of 6 air changes an hour. Our group has specific suggestions for what to say about our air purifiers in these kinds of illness prevention messages. I need to wrap up, so I don't have time to list out our proposed edits, but the proposed edits that I will share with the board and leadership are based on our members' success at getting principals to request their second air purifiers and getting their teachers in their schools enthusiastic about running those air purifiers. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Fair. Next up we have, I believe, Scott Bailey.
Good evening. I checked my email like 5 minutes ago, and oh, I'm on the docket. I didn't know. Chair Wang, Director, Student Director, Superintendent Armstrong. Thanks for giving me 3 minutes. Yes. Okay, as usual. I'll cut to the chase about the bond. Well, a little bit of intro. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I've been working on stuff for 27 years. Served on the school board 2017 to 2021, and have been heavily involved with facilities issues going back to 1998. I got on the committee, and then they put me on another committee and another committee and another committee. And Julia, you were around for some of that.
Almost all of it.
Yeah. 2003 in your living room. In terms of facilities, I especially got involved with the 2012 bond and organized, with help from others, of course, a citizens group that was meeting at what used to be the Lucky Lab in North Portland, to create a bond that would pass. And that group really pushed the idea of doing high schools first as we modernized. However, things have changed since then. And when I look at the proposed bond for finishing the high schools, what I see is that we would have high school capacity in this district for 17,000 students, and we're projected to only have 11,000 high school students in 10 years. That's a huge overbuild, hundreds of millions overbuild, when we also have, 50 plus elementary schools and middle schools that also desperately need rebuilding. And I'm encouraged that Dr. Armstrong has said she's going to look at school closures, because that's where we're at. And it's not just here, it's globally. Birth rates have fallen drastically over the last decade or two. That's Professor Bailey, the teaching demographics and economics, coming out. So this isn't going to change anytime soon. I don't know that we'll ever have 17,000 high school students or anything close to that. So I would ask you to, I don't know where the bond is right now in terms of the ballot, if it's already on the ballot. It's on its way. So if it gets on the ballot, I will oppose it, and I will fight it, because I think it's a huge waste of money, and it would really, it's also going to be 10 years or more, according to staff, where we would have no bond capacity, no capacity to build other schools, to rebuild other schools. And you're going to have public reaction to having a bunch of half-filled high schools. Is that my time up, or is that somebody's phone ringing? That's the time. Okay. So, yeah, gentle, yeah. What happened to the old, didn't we have like 30 volts wired into the, yeah.
It's in front of you, but it's not operable right now.
Ah, there it is. Okay, well, I will stop there. Thank you for your consideration, and there we go.
Great, thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Frazier, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Black Excellence. I'm going to yield the first minute of my time to Yusuf Leary, who's to my right.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I know that the time is kind of short for me, so I'm going to try to speed through this. But please bear with me, and I will ask to just listen to every word, even though it will be fast, because they are meaningful. Good evening, members of the Portland Public Schools School Board. My name is Yusuf Leary, and I am the president of the Oregon Association of Black School Educators, or simply put, ORAPSE. I thank you for allowing me to speak today. I stand before you to emphasize the critical importance of establishing a Center for Black Student Excellence within our district. This initiative is not just about creating space, it's about fostering an environment that uplifts, empowers, and inspires our Black students, educators, and the broader community. A Center for Black Student Excellence would serve as a dedicated hub for academic support, cultural enrichment, and the building of intergenerational relationships. In a city where the degrees of separation are 3 instead of the usual 5, we have to understand how much connection matters. And then, when we take the historical context of our city into account, we can further understand the need for a space where Black minds are celebrated and appreciated. Moreover, the success of this center is deeply interconnected with our need to support Black educators as well. In a time where representation matters, it is imperative that we enhance our recruitment and retainment efforts for our Black educators. When Black students see educators who look like them, it fosters a sense of belonging, understanding. Black educators bring invaluable perspectives and experiences that enrich learning environments for all. They serve as role models, mentors, and advocates that help to bridge the gap between the curriculum and the lived experience. Establishing a Center for Black Student Excellence is not just a goal, it is a necessity for creating equitable educational landscapes. It is essential for the success of our Black students and the overall health of our school community. I urge you to consider this vital initiative and the profound impact it will have on our students and educators alike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf, for speaking to the need for this Center for Black Educators in addition to students and families. As I mentioned at the outset, my name is Erin Frazier, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Black Excellence. As you all well know, but others may not, PPS's Center for Black Student Excellence was proposed in 2020, back when it was easy and perhaps even advantageous for the PPS board to support it. But now every day it becomes clearer that for each step taken forward since the 2020 bond passed, we are at risk of being punted further back than where we were when this all began. That is why tonight I am here to commend the superintendent for the new life that her team has breathed into the CBSE, and to ask this board to recommit to fulfilling its promise to open the center with the urgency necessary to meet the moment. And we're not asking you to do this alone. Indeed, it is with the same urgency that the CBE seeks to answer the question of what is going on here in Portland, that despite our stated values, which are more aligned with a Massachusetts, a California, or a Maryland, we somehow still have outcomes for Black students that are on par with or worse than those in the states Black people fled when they made Oregon their home. It is with urgency that the CBE is working with our partners to connect our children to 8,000 hours of out-of-school enrichment by 8th grade, and with which we are building possibilities labs to expose students to a wide range of careers early and often. It is with urgency that we are working to make apparent through the success of Black students a basic truth that is too often obscured by the data that we lament. Black people can learn. We are good at it. Even when it endangered our lives, we pursued it. And in the face of obstacles certain powers now wish to literally make unspeakable, we still produced innovators and inventors, groundbreaking scholars, activist artists, philosopher athletes, visionary medical and legal minds, and century-defining statesmen. So just imagine what our kids could do and be if we decided to pour everything that we have into them, right here, starting today. Imagine a future filled with something better than what our current system produces, because we integrated our belief that family and community partnerships are essential into our actual plans. Imagine the outcomes we would see if we were excited by, rather than afraid of the fact, that the CBSE will look different than what the district has historically done for the Black children that it has historically underserved. We can build a better world together, brick by brick, program by program, and student by student at the CBSE. And all we are calling on you to do is invest the money you already have collected from this community and that cannot be used for any other purpose than this one, to embrace these truths and work towards that future rather than stymieing them through bureaucratic delay. Most important, and lastly, we are calling on you to demonstrate through your actions and not just your words that you are braver and more principled than many of your contemporaries by re-embracing your commitments to educational justice that were made in 2020 rather than backing away from them. If you do, then together we can make this district a model for the state and for the nation. Thank you.
Thank you all for your public comments. That was 3, right, of 4 slots that we had?
We had another person, but I don't see them. They were supposed to be here virtually.
Okay. So I guess 1 slot from the wait list then. We have time for 1 more. Director Hollins?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Are you giving public comment?
No, but I want to.
No, just kidding.
I got you. Let me get it. So I wanted to actually ask Mr. Bailey a question. When he talked about the number of students proposed based on the population versus the number of students that were there when he was his tenure during his time on the school board, I was wondering if he could share those numbers with the board. And then I want to ask the superintendent if, looking at those numbers and the information he's brought, have that been included in the thought process of the modernizations that we're doing currently.
So, Scott, before you give your reply, I just want to, for the sake of time and also to respect that maybe we have 1 more person off the wait list, could you maybe give your answer in about 1 minute or less, and then if you have more to add, please email it to us. That way, Director Hollins, very
Sure.
good question. I want to respect a chance to have your question answered. So whatever can be answered in a minute, and I also think an email would also do it much more justice too.
So, clarify, make sure I understood your question, how those projections have changed over the last 5-10 years. So PBS was a declining enrollment district for until the Great Recession, because young people would come to Portland, meet, couple up, have a kid, and then go, I want a yard, and move to Aloha or Gresham or somewhere outside of the city. So we had a steady outflow. The Great Recession, that reversed because of the housing market for about 5 years, and we had increasing kindergarten, and that's right when the planning for the 2012 bond happened. So at that time, the projections were somewhat positive, and about 5 or 6 years after that, which would have been right when I came into office, was when that started to flip. And any kind of model that PSU runs, it's gonna, is this just 1 or 2 year aberration or what? And then it just became a steady trend. And we've seen that the latest projections, I think the final projections are even going to be a bit lower than anticipated because kindergarten was lower than they projected, I believe. So right around that time period, and I spent a fair amount of my 4 years trying to get the district to link enrollment projections with modernization, and I couldn't get staff to do it. So
I want to
Thank
make
you
a
for-
comment about this, and I've said this before, and I appreciate you coming here. I've been talking since we were on the board together about the housing units that are coming into the Jefferson catchment area, and just last week, I got a newsletter saying that the Strong family, corner of Alberta and Williams, is building 75 units, 54 of those family size, meaning they're 3 bedrooms and up. Carter Commons, 62 units, also within the Jefferson catchment area. Williams and Russell, many of us in the audience went to the groundbreaking the other day. 85 units plus 20 home ownership. Albina 1 is opening. And so I believe that the fertility rate is flat or going down. And I've also recently met with a demographer from Portland State. And we were told by the Portland State demographer that there were 2 areas in town that were experiencing growth of families that had teenagers, high school, and one was Franklin and the other cluster was Jefferson. Jefferson's now just building family unit homes back after 40 years of disinvestment. So those units are coming, and the people will follow, and the families will follow. And just from my quick math here, it looks like we'll have 100 and 240 units coming on by this time next year. So just to counter that, people are leaving Portland or whatever, people will be coming back because these are considered affordable at 80% or less of the median income.
So,
Sorry,
can,
we are,
just-
I know, but could you email your reply back?
Right.
I'll give you 10 seconds to finish up, and then we
Okay.
need to move on.
And if you do the math on how many units that are family size would have to be built in the Jefferson cluster, it's a whole lot more than that to bring Jefferson High School up to 1,700. It's way beyond that. I mean, that's great that it's happening, but
Thank you. Please email everything you want to say. Please email to it. The more information, the better. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. We have time for one more person off the wait list.
The first person on the wait list is Cherie LeBlanc.
First call, second. All right, next.
Derek Granta.
First call, second. All right, next.
Raisha Puchalaski.
Yeah. Just a reminder, this is one slot, 3 minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name's Shannon Fassold, and I'm the career coordinator at Lincoln High School, and all of my fellow colleagues are also here. And RISA was delayed because we have a really big event that's happening tomorrow that I'm not going to go into. But we learned late last week that the career coordinator positions at all of the high schools were cut from district funding, and so it happened very quickly and sort of blindsided us, so we've been scrambling to put together something. Hopefully you have received what I'm about to read. And I brought up the education plan and profile here because the career piece that is in the ed plan and profile that the district has created from 6th through 12th grade. If you don't have this, please look at it and see how many times the word career shows up on that. But as career coordinators, we are a single classified student-facing position in the PPS high school that works directly with students, all grades, 9th through 12th. In large comprehensive high schools, this can mean carrying a caseload of 1,600 to 2,200 students. We are highly skilled, diverse group of professionals who have come from different industry and education backgrounds, speak multiple languages, many of whom hold advanced degrees. Most of us have been in our positions 5 to 14 years, and below is and I just want to tell you a little sampling of what we do, because one of our biggest challenges is that people don't understand just how much career coordinators do in the buildings. There's one per high school. So we support all students in meeting their state mandated personalized learning requirements for graduation, which include their My Plan Project resume and career-related learning experiences. And often we're the only staff member in the building who's like following up with students and helping them to find those career-related learning experiences and then be able to reflect upon them. So per our education plan and profile, career coordinators collaborate with teachers and counselors and work directly with 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders to ensure that they are doing all of the things in the career plan and profile, as well as we're heavily supporting what is being rolled out in the Senate Bill 3, which requires the personal finance and the college and career higher education paths. We have been asked in our buildings to be a big part of that as career coordinators. Career coordinators actively maintain industry and professional partnerships to support all students to extend their learning beyond the classroom. So this means part-time jobs and summer jobs. We are in heavy flow of summer recruiting jobs right now, so we're working with people on getting those, especially students who it matters that they work. It matters that they work, and we want to find them jobs. We have internships, we have career fairs, company visits, mentoring and job training programs, volunteering. We're working with students to find all of those opportunities and get connected and engaged outside of the classroom, but it enhances inside the classroom. So career coordinators are pivotal in career and technical education, and I just want to point out, thank you for highlighting career and technical education. We work very closely with our CTE teachers in partnering with them to find ways to get students more experiences, and we are taking them on field trips and what have you. So I know that our time is up, but one other thing that I wanted to mention is that career coordinators support our most vulnerable students in our buildings, and that's include those who are receiving special education, multilingual learners, homeless youth, and teen parents. We sometimes are a lifeline for these students in helping them to get the resources and engagement that they need. And this aligns, some of the work that we align, especially centering historically underserved, directly supports Measure 98 money. So the CTE money that we report the data is the Perkins and the Pathways money. We are collecting that data for ODE so that the district can send that information to ODE. So I just want to.
Sorry to cut you off, because
yep.
that was at time.
Yep,
Yeah,
I just want to
finish
thank
up
you.
last sentence?
Yep, I
Thank
just
you.
want to thank you for considering our positions and all that we do in schools.
Thank you for all your hard work. If there's more you want to follow up on, please feel free to email in, and thank you for coming out to speak tonight.
I also hope all of you will reach out to your legislators and the governor about your positions, because they're the ones that can make the decision, because we would, I'm sure, love to keep you if we could. Thank you.
And this is also a reminder, thank you everyone who provided comment today. Your input helps our work become better, so thank you. If you have anything you would like to follow up on, please feel free to contact our senior board manager, Roseanne Powell. Yes. Next up, we have comments from our union partners. We didn't have anyone signed up for comments, but I did see some union members. So I just want to throw this out there. If you would like to use this time, please step up. Step up. Okay, if there's any changes, let me know. All right, next up on our agenda tonight is we have the 2025-26 budget development with our Community Budget Review Committee. The Community Budget Review Committee, or CBRC, is a board-appointed committee that reviews, evaluates, and makes recommendations to the PPS Board of Directors regarding the superintendent's proposed budget and any other budgetary issues the CBRC or the board identify. I want to thank all the members of the committee who volunteered their time to support this really critical function. Superintendent Armstrong, would you like to introduce our presenters for this evening?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Good evening again. So providing tonight's presentation is our Chief Financial Officer, Michelle Morrison, Chief of Equity and Accountability, Dr. Renard Adams, Chief of Family and Community, Senior Director, of Family and Community Engagement, Nicole Watson, and we also have members of the Community Budget Review Committee joining us this evening, and I'll let the team introduce those individuals, those committee members. But I'll turn it over to Chief Financial Officer Michelle Morrison.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this time tonight, and thank you for coming together with the Community Budget Review Committee. First off, I would like to acknowledge our liaison to this committee. I've had an opportunity to attend 2 meetings now, and Alexandra Martin is our pretty amazing staff support for this group, so I'm very thankful for that. Alexandra, can you share who is with us this evening?
Thank you, Dr. Adams. We have our student representative on the Community Budget Review Committee here. This is Caitlin Bice. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Caitlin Bice. I'm a senior at Benson Polytechnic High School.
Thank you. And we have Karanja here.
Benson.
Karanja Cruz.
Juno also supports.
Yeah, I also support. My name is Juno Chang. I'm the Senior Budget Manager.
Online? Sorry? Do we have anyone online? Oh, yeah. So Aaron Cronin is joining us online. I don't see any other CBRC members. Aaron, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, Aaron Cronin. I've got 2 kids, one at Lewis Elementary and one at Selwood. Happy to be a part of this and help put our voices in as we try to untangle our budgetary needs.
Thanks, Aaron. I see we also have someone it says iPhone 2. I don't know if that might be a CBRC member.
Yes, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Minyana Bishop.
Thank you, Minyana.
And I'm new, and so I've been appointed to serve for 3 years. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Those are the only members I see right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. And I think we'll just go ahead and get started, and Dr. Adams will get us going on the agenda and lead into our presentation.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Armstrong, CBRC members, and members of the public who are with us in the audience. Excuse me. Our agenda tonight is to share and discuss our community engagement activities and our survey information from the community budget survey, and then to share upcoming milestones in developing the integrated grant application. Alexandra, if I could have the next slide. Ms. back one. Ms. Watkins is going to share information around our community engagements, and then I'll share the summary data around our survey that we had out in the community for some time, and then we'll have time to do some Q&A, and I'm going to ask you to do an activity that I thought you enjoyed once before, where you jot down something that you notice and something that you wonder, and then we can go around the dais and through the CBRC membership in that format. And so with that, I'd like to turn things over to Ms. Watkins. Alexandra, if we could have the next slide. Watson's. Oh, sorry. I'm messing that up. You got to correct me.
I do not, no. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board. I'm Nicole Watson, and Senior Director of Family and Community Engagement. Excited to share the vision for budget engagement. This was one of my first lifts in this role, and so being able to support Chief Adams and Chief Morrison with really robustly engaging families through a commitment of being transparent, consistent, and definitely deeply engaging community. To our superintendent's point, we have prioritized really early and often and ongoing consistent communication to ensure that all of our voices, especially those that are closest to our schools, are really informed and included in the conversation. Throughout the process, we were really intentional and continue to be in creating multiple opportunities for engagement, ensuring that that feedback is not only collected but actively reflected in the considerations that are before you. This vision was upheld throughout the process, again, by communicating early, engaging often, and making informed decisions together. We recognize that reductions impact real people, real schools, real programs, and we've worked really hard and diligently to ensure that those directly impacted have had a seat at the table. We've designed a multi-phase engagement process that is just beginning, where all of our stakeholders are just not informed, but really deeply invited to participate and to spend genuine time with us in helping us shape the conversation. The insights, this slide just shares a little bit about our at a glance, the activities that we have been robustly engaged in. Our efforts were really designed to recognize that we couldn't use a one-size-fits-all approach. We really needed to be creative in the variety of engagement methods that allowed for both structured and organic kind of dialogue. We've done some virtual town halls, some listening sessions, direct surveys, and some school-based discussions where we've provided opportunities for teachers and educators, families, to engage in ways that feel accessible, in languages that they can access, and in meaningful ways that feel relevant to their lived experience. The breadth of participation from these particular engagement activities have really been a testament to the collective investment of our community. Folks have showed up, and they've been really vocal in the ways that they have advocated for their needs. As we move into the spring, I just want to attest that we remain committed to sustained engagement and ongoing dialogue while attempting to really ensure that those conversations are not one-time events, but that we close that feedback loop and engage in that continuous feedback. Now, don't balk at this next slide. Whew, it is definitely a lot, but we really wanted to articulate the level of engagement, of deep engagement that we have engaged in throughout this process by prioritizing and reaching the most people impacted. We've got some still work to do. There are some stakeholders that are not represented here. And again, we are communicating early and often to get out front so that we really provide a space for teachers, classified staff, and support personnel to ask those critical questions and voice their concerns directly to senior leadership. I want to just also go back briefly to say I know that there is a lot there, but if you have any questions about the actual engagement timeline, I do have a real detailed list of what we've done, where we've done it, and who was engaged, if you so ask. And just finally, across all engagement opportunities, I think it's important to just level what kind of themes have emerged so far, shedding light on kind of what our most important groups have really articulated is the most concerning of their priorities. And one of the most consistent themes we heard was the critical need to protect instructional and student support roles wherever possible. We also heard concerns about equity and how these reductions are, may disproportionately impact historically underserved communities, and families and educators really stress the importance of ensuring that the budget decisions reflected a deep commitment to equity and student success. Conversations have been centered around the real need for advocacy at the state level. There is some real tension around what we know is not working, and there seems to be this real shared understanding that district-wide reductions will just not be enough, So we're really pushing for increased funding to ensure some sustainable and long-term solutions. These particular focal engagements just kind of share a little bit of who the groups were that we have engaged. And again, I share, we are really just getting started. But we have definitely tapped our ResJ Community Advisory Committees, our Migrant Education Council, Culture in the Classroom work, which we'll hear a little bit about, our Indian Education Parent Committee, our CBRC, and our Early Literacy Grant Advisory space. And lastly, I just want to kind of tap a little bit about the significant amount of feedback that we have received. We are still working on our FAQ, really trying to really gather what did we hear you say, here's how we responded, and here's what we can do. And that, I think, is really walking through that phase and deepening that conversation. Going slow to go farther has really done us well in this process. And we really are working to organize with Chief Morrison's team to plan the next slate of engagements. We have an intention to be reaching out to Representative Conseve and our student engagement specialist, Yen Seichow, to see about how we can engage our students and our youth in this very important conversation. We hope to engage our board with a board budget town hall sometime in May. So that would be something that's coming down the pipeline. But we recognize that we just need the advocacy at the state level and want to make sure that we are engaging continuously our stakeholders just to make sure that you are informed, engaged, and empowered to participate in the process. And that is all I think I have.
Sure. Happy to now share the community survey participation in our key findings. As you may recall, we launched a survey in October on the 21st, and it was open until November 30th. And we received nearly close to 4,000 responses from community. As the pie chart shows, 70% of our responses were from parents or families. Roughly 13% were from teaching staff, and then the next largest group were non-teaching staff in schools at 7.6%. Respondents recommended that PPS eliminate a few programs versus reducing services across all programs, and they also emphasized, as Ms. Watson shared, the importance of classroom instruction, teaching and learning over community partnerships or extracurricular activities. We asked survey respondents about PPS's relative strengths, and so we asked the question, how well do you feel PPS is doing currently doing, in the following areas, and there are 9 areas. They are listed and shown on the graph on the right. The highest rated was our diversity and inclusion, and the lowest rating for how well we're currently doing was with student achievement. We also asked questions about the relative importance of, of PPS and what we needed to do to be successful over the next 3 years. How important would it be for us to focus on, again, the same 9 categories? And out of this conversation came classroom instruction being rated the highest and community partnerships being rated the lowest. We also analyzed a lot of open-ended comments, and what we did is we analyzed those comments and grouped them, thank you so much, by the themes that we had, the 9 areas that we had as a part of the survey. And so you can see the graphic goes from the largest proportion of comments by a theme to the smallest from left to right. And so our highest themes for open-ended comments were around hiring and retaining high-quality staff, classroom instruction, and diversity and inclusion. And then the open-ended comments that had the smallest proportion of all the comments were comments around school climate and culture, school leadership, and community partnerships. So we also looked at basically what did the community recommend. So we asked 2 questions. First question we asked was, if you could change one thing about your school or the district, what would it be? The overwhelming comment was around reducing class size. The next largest group of comments were around hiring and supporting high-quality personnel. That includes all the staff that work in the school, so you see teachers, support staff, paraeducators, etc. And then the next highest amount of comments were around fully funding and prioritizing special education services for our students with disabilities. Next, we also asked, and finally, what is the single most positive aspect of this school or the district? And the most frequently commented were that we had caring teachers and staff. We have strong and supportive school communities, the access that we provide to special programs like language immersion, the arts, culture, and sports. And then lastly, but not least, the diversity in our school district. So we have a feedback form that is still open. At the time that these materials were submitted, we had 202 responses. We have more. Since then, I don't have the exact number at my fingertip. But we want to encourage people to continue to give us budget feedback as we continue to release and share information publicly. And questions about the budget that we're receiving through the form, the feedback form, are being curated and posted in an FAQ on the budget website. And with that, that concludes our sharing about the engagement activities and what community has told us via the community budget survey. And so we wanted to rather, so this is a we up here, not an I. We wanted to open up the conversation with the board and the CBRC members that are present here or virtually online around something that you notice and something that you may wonder in the data. If we have the answer available, we'll of course give that to you. If it's something we need to get back to you, we'll let you know.
Great, thank you. I'll go around the room, I guess. I'll start with our online. Let's have Director Green. Do you want to go first?
I'm writing my questions down.
I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Director Hollins, you want to go first?
No.
Thank you for being succinct. Director Brim Edwards.
Sure. I'll just start with a noticing that the highest priority appears to be focused on our students and the instruction they receive in the classroom and the supports they get in their schools. And I'm gonna, this isn't a wondering, but well, maybe it's a wondering, is that I'm curious if we already sent out the staffing to the schools and some decisions were made, for example, there were career coordinators, what impact is the survey response going to have on the decisions that are made? Because it appears, when I look at in the appendix of the cuts that are made, that in addition to the 69, and I got a disclaimer beforehand that things may change, but right now they're, the most recent version we have, there's 69 changes of basically support staff, sort of undefined within the schools, and then there's another 70 FTE in schools at the elementary, high school, and K-8 levels. Actually, there's way more than that. So 113 staff being reduced in the schools. And I'm curious, so how was community, at least the initial community impact, how did that influence the staffing formula and the decisions that were made? And if people engage in the process, since we don't yet even have the superintendent's budget, what can they expect in terms of responsiveness, or were the decisions already made before the community engagement happened?
I'd love to start with that question. Thank you. I appreciate it. So one of the things that we also had going on is not only the community survey, but the staff survey as well. And so we also had some in-person stakeholder engagement sessions. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear from our leaders at the site is more flexibility and autonomy in deciding where they will allocate their staffing. And so what we leaned into was the core program and paying attention to some of those adjustments that we had to make at the class size level, and then some of those investments that were more spendy. So some of the roles that you named aren't roles that, you know, we said eliminate. They are FTE that we allocated to buildings, and we gave them some choice based on some of the needs in their buildings, and that was their preference. And so I think as we continue to hear from community and we begin to see what rises to the top or more needs emerge, we will continue to review, and especially as we think of funds that may be coming in at the state level, should our advocacy pay off, we will prioritize the distribution of those FTE to schools based on the feedback that we're getting. So all of the decisions that we've made has been based on the data and the community input that we've received.
Yeah, but didn't the staffing manual explicitly say that the district wasn't going to fund the career coordinators? I mean, that's how there was a sentence in there that said that.
Yeah, it specifically said that there was a reduction, not an elimination, and that schools had the flexibility to fund positions based on the FTE that they were allotted.
But they're no longer getting the FTE for that particular position. That's what the staffing manual said, that there's not going to be any funding from the district for career coordinators.
Yeah, and listen, my goal is for more autonomy to be at the school level. And so I think in past, as the core program states, there are some decisions about, you know, what lands where, and then there's the out of formula and the in formula, and I think it gets really confusing to community and staff, and especially around this time. And so we give our sites flexibility this year that they haven't had in previous years to allocate staffing in the way that they need. And even, you know, if you remember in the prior year, I think 2 years ago, so last year would have been the first year, so we're just completing 2 years of a full-time instructional coach, and we gave sites the flexibility to use partial FTE and put that FTE towards intervention if that was a need in their building at the elementary level. And so I guess what I'm saying is the FTE that was allocated, sites have discretion and flexibility to fund based on the needs that are coming up in their school communities.
I have another wondering, but I'll wait till you go.
Great. Thank you, Director Bryn-Meadows. All right, Student Director, Representative Consavi.
Yeah, my notice was I think the percentage of students that responded to the survey was really low, so I look forward to working with staff to identify ways to kind of increase that. And I think my wonder is how can we support our college and career coordinators, because I know one of my career coordinator and college career coordinator is here, and just seeing the amazing work they do. They're truly one of the backbones in our schools, and I just see so many students just going to them, even if it doesn't relate to college or career, just for just help in their lives, if they're dealing with something difficult. So I would definitely love to see how we can keep them in our schools.
Thank you. Director Split.
Thank you, Chair Wong. I'll try to stick to the wonder and notice and wonder, but let's see how it goes. Okay, so one thing I noticed was a focus on classrooms, and then I also noticed retaining teachers made the list, retaining excellent teachers. And I loved hearing what the superintendent had to say about flexibility. One thing I know our school has dealt with is, in the past, and I know other schools have as well, is that there's visual arts and music arts, is that what we call it? Music at our school. And as far as elementary schools go, and we've seen the, draft staff reductions every year that kind of take those down to part-time positions. where either they'd have to work in two different schools, which we know is really hard on teachers, not the recipe for teacher retention. And then also, my understanding is there's district policy that like requires that you have visual arts and music in the elementary schools, or certain ones. And I just wanted to give an example. I wanted to say that I noticed that, and I wonder if there are places where we have policies that, given a $40 million cuts dynamic, we might want to take a look at loosening up to say, okay, you can keep your absolutely, you guys know I love our art teacher at my school, I know. We can keep our amazing art teacher who needs to have a full-time job and isn't interested in staying in PPS and being in two different schools. And she's the backbone of our school, I think anyone would agree. And so I just want to give that example of one I know of, but maybe there's others, where there's policies where principals do feel that their hands are tied, and their communities are demanding something and they think they can make it work, but there's like a district policy in the way. So I think it just might be interesting to think about where are those places where you're hearing, this is what we want, we can't have it because of this, and maybe given the dynamics of a $40 million cut to our budget, to be able to say, okay, we can let this go or temporarily or whatever. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, that I notice retaining teachers is a priority, and I wonder if we have policies that will get in the way of that, given the cuts dynamics. Thank you very much for the presentation. I love what y'all are doing. It's why I'm here to represent schools and community on the board, and so when I see what you're putting out, that's what's going to be my North Star. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director DePass.
Yeah, thank you. My wondering, there's a graph, a bar graph that has the centiles in it, and I just realized I was missing a lot of color in my life. I really like that graph. I didn't realize until kind of late in the game that we're talking about two different surveys. One has a survey response of 3,900 and the other one is only 200.
Yes.
And so I don't know when, in the presentation, I can't tell when we're reporting out on which one.
Sure, these data in this, the data in this presentation are from the survey that we almost got 4,000 responses on.
Okay, and that's the community survey.
Right, that was open from October 21st to the end of November.
Okay, and is there another survey that's open still, a second survey?
There's a
Okay, I was
budget, it's a
confused.
budget feedback form.
It's a budget feedback form, okay. I was just curious, there's a couple of graphs that you showed. I'm wondering if there's a way to overlay, and I love that you did the SWOT analysis, the strengths of the district transposed with the weaknesses. In fact, on slide 10, the weaknesses are noted as student achievement, and diversity is rated really high. So is there a way to look at the strengths of the district when we're making our budget decisions? We're talking about instructional leaders and classroom instruction. I'm just curious about that, and you don't have to answer it now, but it seems like there's an answer in the data here. I think that's all for me.
Great, thank you. Director Green, are you ready?
Shut up. After listening to everyone, I think I'm good with where we're at. I like the slides. I like that we were intentional about our community engagement. I like that we're listening to what people are saying and that we're not making a decision for them, without them. So I think I'm good at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Green. My turn. I'm just going to skip to my wonder. I want to actually expand kind of what Director Split was saying a little bit earlier. I wonder if it would be possible to, and this may have already been done, but like as you're doing your work, every time you bump into, say, like unfunded mandate that's really putting some barriers or restrictions around what can be done, if that could be documented in that way, including policies too, what Director Split was saying, our policies, because one of the things about a lot of unfunded mandates that come from a state is that they're very well intentioned, but they also are a one size fits all, and we agree with the intention, but they can result in unintended consequences. So I think it would be very helpful for not just the board, but also the public and our employees to all see like, hey, this is what we want to do. These are the barriers that are in our way. If there are unfunded mandates, for example, or even funded mandates from the state, if there are board policies, anytime that we really bump into that, it'd be nice. And then find someone artistic and make a beautiful chart about, hey, these are our, it's like a pinball machine. We're trying to do this, but these are our barriers. And I think that would really help kind of accelerate discussion. It would also help with people in terms of like advocating at the state legislature to be like, this is our ask. These are the unfunded mandates that are really hampering us. Do something, please. And I think that would just be a very useful, in terms of empowering people. And even if they can't, affect any change in the legislature, it empowers people to know that these are the restrictions that we're dealing with. So yeah, anyways, that's my wonder. And did you have something after that you want to do after this, or?
There are a couple more slides, but I think Director Burmeister's had another.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
I
wanted
was
to
gonna go
circle
back.
back. So last time I asked about one of the recommendations that was made to cut the FTE from the Southeast Guiding Coalition schools, and I asked whether or not those communities have engaged, and I'm just looking at last year where the money went: Harrison Park, Marysville, Clark, Bridger Creative Science, Hosford Lane, Lent, and Whitman, and I'm curious whether since that last discussion, I can understand when I asked the question about who recommended it, it was like, well, the principals decided that like that was less important. So if you're not one of those principals in that area, I could see where it'd be like, yeah, put it all in the big pot versus where the district had committed. And so I'd ask whether or not those conversations had happened, because these aren't community, and I also asked whether there was a forum in the neighborhood, and I was told Dunaway, which is not anywhere near, but so I'm curious whether any specific outreaches happened to those schools so they can participate in the budget process.
I can answer that. Director Bam Edwards, no, not yet. And so I think, again, what the current budget engagement process revealed is where we continue to need to do some more work. So I've elevated, I've written it down, and as I begin to engage, continuing deeper, that could be a community that we absolutely tap. You're welcome.
I was wondering if we could also invite our CBRC members here tonight to do a notice and wondering as well.
Yes, that's actually going to be my next question, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go. My name is Karanja Cruz, for the record. Just a little bit of background about myself. Born and raised here, alumni of PPS, Boise Elliott, Harriet Tubman, Albina District, Benson High School. I'm also a teacher, former teacher of 15 years. I taught in PPS for 6 years and Beaverton School District for 6, or PPS 7. So my lens is going to come from, I'm also a parent. I'm on the PTA for Jefferson. Jefferson is in the high school playoffs right now, so go Demos. I serve as the community engagement for PTA. However, so my lens is going to be more so from a classroom perspective, and I have a couple of clarification questions, and then I have some wonderings. So the first clarification is on the budget engagement timeline. Maybe you can go back to that slide. I also serve on the Family Advisory Committee for PPS, and I'm also in the Culture in the Classroom initiative as well. I do not remember having a budget conversation in those sessions. So maybe I missed something there. So I just wanted some clarification around that. And then also too, the wondering is, if you notice in the slide, it said classroom instruction, but at the end, it was student achievement was last. I think we should pay attention to that correlation. One of the things, and then if you go back to, in this presentation, there's a section where it has reductions. If the community is focusing on classroom instruction, as some of the board members have stated, I think we need to reconsider cutting classroom positions. One in particular, I'm noticing in the elementary school section, a reduction of 18 positions, kindergarten education assistants, of a size of 20 in a Title I school. To me, that doesn't really align with our board goals. If we're trying to focus on third grade effective third grade achievement, we have to focus on early childhood education. One of the things that I'm noticing too, being in all these different committees, being in PTA, I'm also on the site council, the family advisory committee. Everything is in silos, and I feel like everything is separated. It's like everybody's doing their own thing. Like we're gonna have a presentation of the Center of Black Student Excellence, and I've seen the presentation, and and I feel like everything is just separated. I feel like we need to all come together, figure out what's really happening within the district. I talked to a couple of board members. They didn't know anything about the Culture in the Classroom initiative or the Family Engagement Advisory Committee, and that was kind of concerning to me. But one of the things, I did some research on MAP testing. Again, this is focusing on classroom instruction. There's a disconnect because we spend a lot of money on a lot of different initiatives as well. We have the innovative studios. We have all these different types of things we spend a lot of money on, but there's no connection. Have you guys, raise your hand if you heard of community schools? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I won't go into that. Maybe that's a whole nother presentation. But we need more of a community school model, district-wide within our district, for sure. Yeah, you can clap on that. So when I did a public request on the MAPS contract, and I believe it was, close to like $1 million, if not more. However, we're not using it effectively within the classroom because there's two different types of assessment. I've been saying this to you guys over and over again. It's like comparing apples and oranges. Like we're assessing an orange, but our state tests assess apples. So there's no correlation there. There's so many things that we can cut besides classroom instruction, and then we have to have more of a focus on effective classroom instruction. I should say I was an effective teacher because I was raising my kids' reading scores. They was reading at a second grade level. By the end of the year, they were reading at a fifth grade level, and I thought I was doing something. However, once they leave my classroom, I saw the achievement go down and I saw them begin to drop out. So it's like I have all these different perspectives, and then being an entrepreneur, being able to hire some of my former students and seeing just the different gaps in the academics that's not correlating into the real world. There's so many different issues there, but I just want us to kind of really hone in and focus on different things that we can cut. As an entrepreneur, we call it cutting the fat, besides really affecting the true product. The product is our students and student achievement. That's the end result, the end goal. That's the reason why we're doing all of this. So we have to focus on that. And cutting classroom teachers and assistants and things like that is not going to get us to that goal. So that's one of the observations that I've noticed that we should definitely consider.
Okay, so there's a couple things that I've noticed and I've wondered about. I don't really have specific questions, more so just curiosity. A couple things, I noticed that you all spoke to a wide variety of groups, specifically the migrant education family, the parent association, and I found that really interesting because with some of this, I'm kind of struggling to see how what we got from the community actually impacted where we're making our budget cuts. With this program specifically, I see that we talked to the parent association, but I know somebody in that program, the migrant education program, and I spoke to her yesterday and she said that all of the positions were cut and that the program would be moved out of the district. So that's just a little bit confusing to me. Also, as well, I noticed that we rated high quality staff and student achievement as some of the most important things that we want to focus on in the next year. And to me, it's hard to see how that correlates with cutting all of our career coordinators because, as they mentioned, it is very, very important for student achievement and success to have those college and career coordinators who can support students in that way. And for the final thing, to Director Wang's point about documenting unfunded mandates in schools, like specific situations like that, I totally agree with that, and I think that would be very important for future legislative advocacy. However, I will say that I don't notice a very easy way for people to do that. There's not really like a form for people to fill out, and also a lot of people don't really understand specific unfunded mandates or just policy talk in general. And then to the third point, when people are in schools, teachers are teaching and students are learning. So I completely agree with that. I think that we would need an easier avenue for people to be able to report that and then bring that to the board and be able to do that without distracting from what they need to be doing at school. Thank you.
Not to interrupt, but I think she actually had a question we can answer. I'm probably not the appropriate person to answer, but on the migrant education, I got an email today on that. Do you want to just make sure she knows what's happening there? And everyone in the room knows. I wish we could have said it when the folks that I think were here on the item were here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we heard from ODE a few months ago that that program would be, because of the numbers, the low enrolled numbers, that that program would be moved over to the MESD. And so while, they value feedback and engagement, this is a decision that they had to make quickly. So we learned this on October 15th. And since then, the MESD team and PPS have been meeting to create a smooth transition. We didn't have a choice in it. So it's something that we have to comply with, and so that is why the migrant education program is moving over to the MESD. And then the other thing I will say is that I know this is the time, and it's appropriate as, folks in schools are processing their decisions around staff. We have not yet received the final staffing sheets from schools, and so and I get this is all part of the engagement process, and we want people to come out and share their voices. And I'll say that until we receive the staffing sheets from schools, we can't say definitively that, a particular person or a particular group is reduced, right? So more information will come in the coming months.
Great, thank you. Director Brim Edwards?
I was just going to ask, so for example, just in term, having been around a while, PPS goes through this tight loose. So sometimes we're going to give schools flexibility, and then what we end up is, so maybe only 4 of the high schools will decide that because they didn't get FTE for the career coordinator, that they're not going to take it from some other place and put it in. So they've had flexibility, but then what we have is not every school having the same thing. And I'm just going to be thinking as we head into the budget process, what are the things that we know every high school should have? I mean, we know a lot about CTE and it being a predictor if kids go through those CTE and courses, they're more likely to graduate and be successful after high school. And there will be things where, like the example that Director Split gave, where maybe that flexibility is fine, that a school decides, we're not going to do that because we want to double down on this other piece. So I just think we should keep that in mind, because if there's, sometimes flexibility means that some students don't get things that we think that all students, and know that all students should have. So that's going to be something when I go through the process that I'll be thinking about, where's that flexibility? And sometimes the way that you prioritize things is everybody's, which I think is what we've done in the past, everybody's going to get the FTE because this is a priority for us, that every student should have that.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. I'm not sure if there was a question in there, but I appreciate the comment. And I will say that, as we distribute the FTE, in some cases, equally, there is that equity piece of schools and their communities deciding what their need is. And I think need looks different across Portland. And so I think that's why principals were asking for flexibility. And for them to be able to make those decisions. And so until their staffing sheets are back and we're able to see what it is that our true impact to staffing is when we'll be able to speak to that better. But as of now, the core program outlines what should be in all schools that are baseline.
I think I would also add that, thank you, Dr. Armstrong. Next meeting, the appendices in here with those recommendations shifted before we put staffing out. So we made improvements based on community feedback, based on building leader feedback from those engagements. And coming to you in just whenever it needs to upload on board book will be the next presentation that will have the more updated recommended list that will show the shifts that we made based on the feedback that we received.
And to that point, so I got an email before the meeting about somebody who looked at your slides. So people are reading the slides, are reading the appendix, and they said the slide at the K-5 level that only 60 FTE are being reduced, and the person says, at my building alone, we are losing 7.6 FTE. Can you explain? So is this the explanation is the next run of and slides would have like the updated numbers, and that's why what this person's question appears that there's more FTE cut from their schools than cut across the entire district?
Well, I can definitely guarantee that the FTE on the second version, the greater FTE that are reduced are at the central office level, not at the school site level. And so we look forward to having that up as soon as possible. And so it's been a huge swing. And as a matter of fact, there's still reductions in cost-saving measures that we're identifying at the central office level. So that work continues.
No, and what we can, as we've shared in the past, Director Edwards, we can give you that sort of heat map.
I love the heat map.
That will show the changes year over year. The team's been very busy as we had to make changes going into and leading up to staffing, but we'll have that for you as quickly as we can.
So, Director Pass, I'll go to you next. I just want to make sure we see a hand up raised online. Oh, that's just a pot. Oh,
We talked to the advocacy CBRC. I don't know the names of everything, and everyone speaks in acronyms, so it doesn't help me. But the CBRC members that are in the room, but there's also CBRC members that are patiently here virtually, and I thought maybe we might see if they have anything they want to notice or wonder about. And I know we're a little over on time, so maybe they could.
no, thank you. That's why I thought that was a hand, but I'm just seeing things. Yes, is there anyone online that would like to also contribute? Thank you. Aaron Cronin.
Thank you. Hope everyone can hear me. I noticed that I guess the parent responses were in line with my focus also. You know, as a former student of 20 years in classroom in some degree, and now observing my kids in classrooms, just how large the impact of class size has on the experience and capacity for children to get the attention they need and to be monitored. And, you know, I was a child of a lot of attention difficulties in early classrooms, and if I did not have a teacher that had the time to sit down with me and kind of hammer in on some stuff, I would not have made it through, you know, law school. I wouldn't be sitting here today. So everything I feel has to support that. And if we're throwing 35 kids at a fifth grade teacher, that is an unsustainable. When my daughter went through that, it is suboptimal, and we were failing our kids. And then we're going to lose the families that can afford to take their kids in private school. We lose them because of that experience. So it's a reinforcing cycle. So that would be my main thing. I guess that is so I wonder, what are we doing to make sure that the classroom experience is, and that is, talk about equity, like that benefits everybody all across the board, like especially in places where, you know, maybe kids aren't, you know, have a little more difficulty like I did paying attention and sitting still. So anyway, that's my kind of my bailiwick, And I'm curious to know what we can do to ensure that we're not just jamming kids into classrooms that then become sort of babysitting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Grace Groom?
Hi, everyone. I am just going to focus for now on the Notice and Wonder on the community engagement piece. I noticed there were several points on the timeline of who was asked about or presented to about the budget. And from what I can see, there was one town hall that was held for educators, or maybe two, pretty late in the process. And I'm wondering, were the principal surveys, were those shared with staff? Did they get feedback from staff? At what point were the direct service providers able to give input, not just hear a presentation?
Great, thank you. Yeah, unless you want to answer them, because I mean, this is a marathon. We're going to be answering lots of questions for the whole
I'll
season.
go ahead and take that. I also want to address Karanja's question. My brother asked a really good question about culture in the classroom. And one of the things that I want to reiterate is I'm like 12 days in the role. So part of that means that we needed to do some information gathering. And one of the things that I asked our team to do is to put together an exhaustive list of all of the ways that we had began engagement from top of the school year to present. One of the line items I see on my spreadsheet is that we did engage culture in the classroom on October 30th of 2024 in a virtual space. That was before I might have got here, so Karanja, I may need to do a little bit of research to find out what the contents of that conversation might have been like and who may or may not have been present to corroborate that. But a part of authentic engagement is being able to be fully transparent, so I appreciate the call-in, and we'll make sure that we get back to you about that particular engagement. For Grace, you're right, you did see one particular town hall, and I think where the timeline might have felt late, we are actually early in how we're engaging communities around budget. We typically do not engage our stakeholders this early in the game, which then creates this kind of rut race at the very end. By being early and often means that we do get an opportunity in the spring to re-engage communities and to be able to do that at a lift that feels authentic. One of the things that I think was really important to our team was getting in front of educators, and we attempted to do that, and then it didn't land easily. So we reached out to our union labor partners, we asked some really diligent questions, we listened to what they had to say, and then we came back to the drawing board and replanned and re-hosted. Didn't mean that some days were delayed, but I would rather measure 8 times than cut once. And so I think as we are reestablishing trust with our communities, it is super important to have that grace, but also to reach back to our partners and get some feedback. So I do appreciate that feedback, and you will see more engagement for educators forthcoming. Thank you.
And I also appreciate the question that was asked about class size and what we're doing. And I will say at this moment, the most significant thing that we're doing is advocating at the state level to fully fund the quality education model and unfunded mandates and raise the cap on special education. As we receive those funds, should those items be approved and placed in the governor's budget, that allows us to be able to properly resource our schools. But until that happens, I think we're going to continue to have this push and pull conversation about the needs that we have in our buildings and in our classrooms and the ones that we need from outside of Portland.
Do you know what the classroom size cutoff is for the state by law? Does anybody know?
There is none.
Oh, so it's no cap.
Statewide classroom caps.
Oh wow. Okay.
No cap.
I remember having a 4 or 5 billion of 35 students at Vernon, but that was one of my best class experiences. I do have a question about one of our roles as the community members is to evaluate programs. Will we get an opportunity to have a list of programs that PBS funds at a very high level, amount level, that we can evaluate and maybe give feedback on about possible cuts rather than classroom teachers?
Before I see Dr. Adams ready to answer that, I just wanted to respond, Karanjan. I know you were being a little facetious about your class in Vernon and 35 and being your best class yet. One of the things I've been saying in Salem and will continue to say here is that the students from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and even 5 years ago are vastly different than the students that we have now and the needs that they have in their classrooms, right? And so for us, it's a conversation not just about making sure that we have one of our amazing high-quality teachers in front of them, but that we have the supports for them to be able to do all the things that they need to do on behalf of students. And in order to do that, it takes resources, right? And so, you know, walking through a classroom in a couple different parts of town, a class of even, you know, 25, 28, 30 presents different, even just across our city, based on some of the needs that they have from their outer community. So we want to be able to address that. Until we address that, we're not going to see the rise in scores that we plan on having over time. So, yeah. But did you want to answer?
No, I was just going to mention that Chief Howard and Chief Bruno aren't here, but we can certainly have conversation with them and with CBRC about what is it that we mean by program, what then does that then umbrella encompass, and how we might go about providing information.
Yeah, that sounds great. Unfortunately, I would love to continue this conversation for hours, but we are past time. I do want to really double down on my thank you for the CBRC. You all are volunteers, and this is really important work, and we really look forward to more of your input. So let's keep these communication lines constantly open. Thank you, you three, for also your presentation. It was very helpful in helping answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to do a quick little switcheroo because there were some scheduling conflicts and stuff like that. So we have some union partners that are here, and I want to give them some time and space to have their, well, just time and space. We'd love to hear from you. So if any of you are ready and want to present.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for moving the schedule so that we could speak. My name is Angela Bonilla. I'm the president of the Portland Association of Teachers.
And my name is Alicia Chavez, and I'm the vice president of the Portland Association of Teachers.
So first, as always, I'll start with kudos. I will share that it's been very, very difficult to find those kudos this time around, just from the flood of needs and emotions coming from our educators after the conversations around staffing the last few weeks. But there are some highlights. I would like to first give a kudos to Dr. Armstrong. She joined PAT educators for 10 different listening sessions where she sat down with small groups of educators to hear what they're actually experiencing on the ground. And those conversations were difficult and they were painful. And there were tears, and we've never had a superintendent engage our members in that way, and so that is huge for us and a huge step in rebuilding the trust. So thank you. I heard lots of members say that they are tentatively optimistic, that there is a little bit of faith being built in that we can turn the ship around. I also want to appreciate our board, our superintendent, and our state union, the Oregon Education Association, in our advocacy to remove the SPED funding cap and have that removal be matched with funds to make up the difference between what they've been paying for SPED, for special education supports, and what our students need. If that cap can be raised and if those funds can be appropriated, that is money that we can free up to provide the resources that students need across the board. I also want to give a kudos to Chair Wong for an invite to Salem. I was there with our superintendent, with our chair, and able to advocate to our Senate leader around education funding and making sure that we are, avoiding those unfunded mandates, making sure that we're talking about how can PERS be funded separately from our state school fund so that schools aren't thinking they have one budget and then the PERS forecast comes in and it's a completely different budget, while the state still commits to the promise they made to public employees about their retirement. How can we have both those things be true without hurting one or the other? I also want to give a kudos to our educators. We had several educators across almost every school today do walk-ins and walkouts before and after contract time to take a stand in the national action on March 4th for our students, against the cuts at the federal level, against the threats to the Department of Education, the threats to IDEA funding, Title I funding, the attacks against our LGBTQIA plus students, our immigrant students, and our communities. Educators came out proudly. We were able to go to Roosevelt High School this morning. I was at Marysville this afternoon. Alicia, you were at George Middle School, and Chavez K-8 as well, and being able to see our community come out and say we will not allow a federal government to tell us what our values are. We will continue to fight for our students, to fight to tell the truth and teach the truth and protect all of the kids that come through our doors was really powerful. So, we are advocating for more funds from Salem, as we should. I know that our district, Dr. Armstrong also has plans to do a blitz in the spring to make sure that our administrators are getting every student who is planning on enrolling or possibly can enroll is enrolling. So we're not doing this October shuffle where students are now in a new class with new students because we finally, the reality on the ground has finally caught up to the folks making the decisions. I know that we are also pushing to make sure that over the summer we're having those conversations. Maybe we can avoid some of those the day before, the week before enrollments and try to get the staffing set up now so that we're ready to welcome our students. But I wonder, what does it look like to ensure that we have the EAs in our kindergarten classes across the district? Schools with over 20 students still need those EAs, especially even at our non-title schools, right? Our students with high needs, our students from historically and currently marginalized communities exist in all of our schools. So how do we ensure that we have the resources to support all of them? What does it look like to have restorative justice coordinators and counselors and social workers in our middle schools and in our high schools, along with college and career support in our high schools? What does it look like to have a school system that works for our students, where our students aren't saying, I reached out and I went and filled out the form to go to the counselor, but they're not here today. They're split between a few sites, so I won't be able to see them for a while. Right? We want to make sure that our students, especially those in crisis, have access to those professionals. And I'm concerned that with the budget cuts as deep as they are, we are really cutting to the bone. We've been making cuts year after year, central office and our schools, and at this point, it doesn't feel like there's any more meat left to cut, right? I know foundation funding can't be used by sites for staffing, so what does it look like for our district to use foundation funds for staffing? How can we support those families who willingly double tax themselves to try to give their schools staffing? How do we support those families in saying we're going to commit to getting that staffing out to all our buildings anyway? Help us get those funds out there. What does it look like to use our rainy day funds, our reserves, to stop the hemorrhaging of our most experienced staff from our buildings, from our student-facing positions? How are we going to Salem and saying, hey, we're doing everything we can. We've spent our reserves, we've spent our foundation money, we've done everything we can. We've spent every penny on our students. How are you going to match that energy? How are we advocating for revenue reform, for kicker reform, for the top 1%? How are we as a district saying, until our state can ensure that we have affordable housing in our city, we will not have the enrollment to sustain this district. Until our state and our county and our city says, hey, it matters to have a livable city, we can't maintain the staffing that we have. These are big questions and questions that I don't know that y'all will have the answer to, but I want to raise them because I think it's important, as Karanja shared, that we start talking about community schools not just as a dream, but as a goal and as something that we will be fighting for and that we will be advocating for across the state. Because if we can get our schools to be funded as the community hubs we know they already are, that's when we're going to see student achievement increase. That's when we're going to see the absenteeism going down. When students look at our schools and say, I want to be there. Because I know when I need help, someone's going to be available to help me. I know when I want to engage in sports or arts or theater, there's someone to do that with me. I think it's important and it's crucial for us to have these really difficult third rail conversations, especially when we're talking about revenue reform with the legislature, and say that we won't accept a legislature that says, well, polling's not great on education funding. The polling says folks don't like kicker reform. Okay, well, we have to change that, right? We have to have our leaders lead. So what I'm asking and what I'm inviting y'all to join me in is, as leaders, pushing our legislature to really make those difficult calls and stop telling us we have to fight over scraps and start saying, hey, those who are eating at the buffet table need to share some of that food. I think as educators, we're seeing this in the very local and immediate way, right? We're seeing at Marysville 8.5 FTE being cut. We're seeing at high schools several FTE being cut, and folks saying, what is going to happen next year? How are we going to manage? We barely managed this year. But what I know about our educators and what I know about our community is that we come together and we fight to make it work, and we're going to keep fighting until we get what we need, because we know that when we fight, we win, right? So to quote the Chicago press conference that they had today, those folks might be running DC, but we're running PPS, and we're running it together as teachers, as families, as communities, and as staff, and we can demand change for the education our students deserve. We can demand change for the funding that our schools deserve and for the Portland that our communities deserve. So I'm looking forward to continuing this fight, and I'm looking forward to looking at how we can ensure that every step we take is pushing us towards those community schools, towards funding that is directly impacting our students, towards retaining and recruiting and promoting our most talented staff and educators so that they stay in our district, so that they can retire from our district and be proud of being here. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bonilla. Next up, seems hard to transition from that. That was very powerful. Thank you very much. Next up, we have an update for our Center for Black Student Excellence. I just want to also say thank you for being patient and flexible as we kind of shift the schedule around, and very many apologies for the delay. So, Superintendent Armstrong, could you introduce this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. The Center for Black Student Excellence is dedicated to empowering students within Portland Public Schools and providing them with the resources and support they need to thrive. I like to, well, she's already here, so I don't need to invite her up. But we have before you Nicole Watson, who is the new Senior Director of Family and Community Engagement. She will oversee part of her work includes overseeing the Center for Black Student Excellence work, and so I will have her introduce her staff and begin with this item. Thank you for being here.
It's so good to see you again. Thank you so much. I am excited to provide this update and introduce Quinn Peoples, who is going to wow you with an update of the Center for Black Student Excellence.
Thank you for that introduction. Like Nicole said, my name is Quinn Peoples. I utilize he, him pronouns, and I currently serve as our program manager within the Center for Black Student Excellence. We also had a couple slides, and I don't know if I'm supposed to wait for those to come up or not. Oh, take your time. Thank you. While we're here on this first slide, I want to acknowledge it's been a while since we've spoken to you. Also, just as a reminder, the Center for Black Student Excellence comprises of a constellation of academic programs, strategies, supports, and experiences reinforced by a physical infrastructure. This opportunity ahead is to redefine the future by advancing a culture of Black excellence while meaningfully integrating joy and healing, unifying and elevating the Black educational experience, and improving outcomes for Black students here at PPS. Next slide, please. So a little background, as you can see there, between fall of 2022 and spring of 2023, there were about 150 meetings facilitated with the community to co-design that vision for the CBSE. That vision is that very large booklet that many of you probably have. And there also was some time for a community pause and reset to reestablish a shared sense of community, collectively problem solve, and chart a path forward in finding a home for the CBSE. So, moving forward to the summer of 2023 to 2024, what emerged from that workshop series was an investigation of sites, both co-locations, existing properties, and a number of other options. And then fast forwarding to the beginning of this year, of the fall, we were able to hire a director for the Center for Black Student Excellence, as well as myself as our program slash project manager, and do some coalition building. Next slide, please. So our priorities, our staff has worked collaboratively to develop a community coalition strategy aligned with that vision. This collaborative effort has involved extensive engagement and deliberation over several months. To personalize these student outcomes, we've had a series of community conversations and will continue to have those with principals at Harriet Tubman Middle School, as well as Boise Elliott Humboldt Elementary. And these discussions are aimed to understand the unique needs and aspirations of students within those communities, as we understand a one-size-fits-all model does not work. The development of this multi-secular partnership was guided by principles of academic research, innovation, as well as liberatory design, and looks to prioritize the expansion of capacity, power, and resources within the community to collectively implement strategies to advance educational equity, especially for our Black students here. Next slide, please. So what we're working on now is what are our pilot programs, or what we call our 4 core initiatives. The first one of those is our Action for Equity framework, which will assist schools in identifying trusted adults, improve student belonging and achievement, increase attendance, support leadership development, and expand access within the public school education system using 2 metrics or 2 modalities. Our equity leader, or trusted adult, which are who are the students, or who are the adults in the building that students trust, who are they going to, who are the ones who know how to best engage and talk with our students. And also our Action for Equity cards, or student insight cards, that would feature information about learning mindsets and skills, reported barriers, career interests, goals, and subjects of interest, so that everyone in our buildings can best understand our students. So we will utilize those trusted adults, which we will determine what that looks like by actually going to the schools and interviewing students about what does a trusted adult look like for them, and design training based on what those students are saying they need in those buildings, kind of going back to that approach of we want it to be unique and specific to those schools. We'll use that Action for Equity framework as a foundation for our other 3 initiatives that you see there, and we'll speak more about on the next slide. And this will continue to be a collaborative effort between the CBSE, PPS departments, and nonprofit organizations to implement and measure the impact of these efforts. Next slide, please. So our next phase upon establishing those things will be Pages of Possibility, which is in line with the Superintendent's Lifting Literacy campaign that looks to cultivate a love of reading by providing each student with a personalized library of 12 culturally relevant books, or books that just are reflective of who they are and experiences that they've had. We look to do that in collaboration with Third Eye Books, as well as the Scholastic and the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Our Parents Advocating for Student Success, or PASS, is an initiative that looks to establish robust partnerships between parents and guardians to create a supportive community that enhances student well-being and academic achievement. And by fostering those strong connections, we hope to empower parents and equip them with tools to appropriately advocate for their students. Something that I heard upon taking this role was that many of our Black families didn't know that they could or how to advocate for their student to have an IEP. I think that's really important information for all of our families to have, and so we just want to make sure that we're leveraging both experienced parents in our district, maybe pairing them up with younger parents, so that we just know how to navigate this place as a person who's here supporting their student. And lastly is our Bridges to Brilliance program, which will be a mentoring and tutoring program that addresses the economic or educational disparities and empowers our next generation of leaders by fostering an intergenerational knowledge transfer and skill development through dialogue and other opportunities. This will pair a student up with a peer mentor, as well as a mentor in a career field that they've identified on that student insight card from the last slide, just so we can start that ideation on what I can be be very early on. So next slide, please. So the things we'll be looking to measure in putting forth these pilot programs will be school climate and culture, student achievement and engagement, and those metrics you see there, as well as those qualitative measures of student portfolios, which is collecting student work that demonstrates that growth in those areas, and doing focus groups with students, families, and teachers to make sure that we're getting their feedback, incorporating that, and using that to scale up or expand our programs in the future. And much of how we can scale it will be contingent upon budgeting for the next year. So our next step, so we did a soft launch of these programs was when we were starting to engage in those conversations with those principals at Boise Elliott Humboldt and Harriet Tubman Middle School in February. Between now and the end of the year, we'll be implementing and managing that A4E program we spoke about, determining timelines for those other initiatives, and then finding ways to facilitate some community engagements to make sure that we're getting that feedback from them as well. And then in the summer, we'll train those Action for Equity adults for a full launch in the fall while continuing to take steps forward in acquiring a space. Next slide, please. And speaking of a space, this is a lot, so please bear with me, but it's the last slide. Guided by a community vision, the CBSE staff is working tirelessly to find a home for the Center for the Black Student Excellence. In reflecting that vision, PPS staff, community partners, and data regarding desired student outcomes has supported us in envisioning a space that includes the following: the Create and Innovate Lab, a dedicated pedagogical environment for students to engage in experiential learning within the entrepreneurial, mechanical, and creative industries. This space will feature Full Steam Ahead, a K-12 program that enables exploratory, action-oriented, reflective, and transformative learning using science, technology, art, engineering, and math skills, alongside reflective reasoning to solve complex problems and ultimately increasing the number and diversity of students choosing a STEAM career. Additionally, this space will feature the possibility labs that offer developmentally appropriate career exposure for students, including guest speakers, panels, career fairs, and much more. The Center for Culture and Community Collaboration will be a centralized space for students to engage in intercultural understanding and appreciation of history and culture within Portland Public Schools. This space will feature a cultural archive with comprehensive programming, tentatively deemed the Legacy Project, that integrates academic learning and experiential opportunities to inspire students to become informed, engaged, and empowered citizens. This space will also include the Nurturing Community Impact Program, coupled with a CBO incubator, partnering with student-serving nonprofit organizations to serve PPS students and provide opportunities to engage in community service and social entrepreneurship. Lastly, a community kitchen will facilitate the Nurturing Minds and Bodies program that fosters community, promotes cultural heritage, encourages healthy habits that support academic achievement, and empowers students through food by combining culinary education, intergenerational learning, and social engagement. The Center for Wellness and Excellence in Learning will bring a holistic approach to supporting Black students, families, and educators by centering the needs and experiences of these individuals and welcoming and affirming all visitors regardless of background or identity. The center will prioritize healing justice, address historical trauma, and promote collective liberation. The program will focus on holistic well-being as well as include spaces such as a writing center, qualitative reasoning room, opportunities office, sensory space, yoga and meditation space, a reading room, and of course study spaces for kids. And lastly, the multi-purpose center will be flexible spaces that are designed to empower student engagement, community building, and diverse learning experiences through a wide range of activities, serving as a hub for assemblies, events, physical activities, performances, and collaborative projects. They provide dynamic environments conducive to student growth and development. When operating at its finest, the CBSE will cultivate programming that exists both within itself and within the schools to provide the most access to students as possible. Moreover, the CBSE will create a synergy between the district and the community that will allow us to support students while uplifting the very communities they are a part of. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you, and I look forward to creating brighter futures together.
There's been some recent questions or comments lately, and I just thank you, team. That was wonderful. I just want to make sure that I emphasize for all of our community, there's a saying that says a rising tide lifts all boats, and that the Center for Black Student Excellence is a space that is available and open for all of our Portland Public School students.
Thank you. We have some time for some quick questions if you would like to take?
I'm new to all of this. I want the book. Can I get the book that you talked about everybody having? Thank you.
Absolutely.
I would love to have it. But super supportive. Everything I'm hearing sounds like a dream, frankly, and kind of fits in with the community schools conversation everybody raised their hands about a little while ago. My question is, my understanding is that we have funding in a bond that can be used for, what did somebody say? It's like nails and walls or something? Sticks and bricks, thank you. It's a rhyme, I can remember that next time. And that's the money that we have. I think it's $60 million, right? And so the school district can provide that physical space. That's my understanding. But everything I just heard is not just the physical space. And I'm curious, in the most supportive and sensitive way possible, if I can ask how the rest of the work would be funded.
Absolutely, and I definitely want the team to be able to answer that. And I also want to say that that work is happening now. We have work that's happening to engage our communities. There's culture in the classroom. So we are already putting resources into supporting our groups who have had the least amount of opportunity to be successful. And so we would stay and continue to commit to that. And then we also have wonderful partners who are engaged in that work now, right? When we think of our ResJ partners and others who stand in unity with our work for improving the educational outcomes for all of our students, that work is happening now, right? I think the intent was never to wait for the building or to wait for some grand bag of money, but that we need to move now. We need to do the work now. And we're at this wonderful place now where we can get that work to be centralized. But I do want to turn it over to the team to add on.
Absolutely. Specifically, if you're talking about our pilot programs, which we're piloting now, we currently have an internal budget that we're using to fund those programs. And then to continue those pop-out or pop-up programs, we will be seeking internal funding to continue to do that work. As it relates to programming that may exist in a space, I think much of that conversation must happen after we've identified what a space can look like to give somebody something to believe in or to donate to or give energy to.
Yeah, and I have 3 questions. I think my first one is if you guys could share the cost of each sites.
Well, we're still in the exploration stage right now. This presentation is on the programming and looking at our understanding the work that's happening in Portland now, and then we hope to bring back a later date, more information on hopefully a home. We're in a conversation stage now, so not yet ready to have a public discussion.
And then my next question is it the board's role or the superintendent's role to determine the location?
I was like, we as the CPF staff are to provide a recommendation to both the board and the superintendent who will make that final determination.
And then my next question is what's the collaboration looks like with the CBSE, looks like with the Black student unions?
So from what I currently stand about affinity groups in our schools is that there's currently an administrative directive being worked on by another work group here that is figuring out how and what it looks like for folks like myself to engage with affinity groups. So at this time, we haven't been able to because that administrative directive has not been established to establish a policy and process of how we can engage with Black student unions.
And when we say affinity groups and Black student union groups, as we all know, especially as a public school district, all of our groups are open to all of the students, whether or not they identify with a certain category.
And I bring that last question up because I know I received an email by a BSU student leader about finding ways how all of the BSUs at our different schools can find a way to connect with each other. So I think that'd be a great opportunity for you guys to collaborate in that way.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Could use the space too.
I'm just, after being on the board for 5 years, watching this pass overwhelmingly by voters in 2020, hearing the discussions around it, hearing the critical, pushback from even some of our board members. I'm really, really excited for the courage and the conviction just staying with this program. Voters were promised a Center for Black Student Excellence. Y'all are delivering it. I'm just very excited. I'm supportive. I don't have any critical feedback. I know we're looking at spaces. I know these spaces will be open to every student that wants to come and be welcome there. And I just can't say how excited I am to see the progress that's been made. I also want to acknowledge Miss Camille in the back, who did so much of this foundational work. I mean, so much of it, pulling the community around, pulling them along, pulling all of us along, us hard-headed, really, I just want to acknowledge the great work that's happened for this last 4 years.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one. In your second slide, you said 150 meetings with community to co-design the vision. Wow, that's a lot. Were there any, just because sake of time, hopefully quick, any highlights from those meetings or unpacking it in some way? I'm just very curious.
So I started this job in September of 2024, so that was pre-me. Well, I would love to answer that question. I wasn't here to receive that
that was
feedback.
that was Miss Camille's leadership at that time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Question. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And I was interested in the student-based initiatives that you shared tonight and highlighted. And I love that they're connected to our board goals and also to Superintendent Armstrong's Advancing Literacy campaign. I love seeing that interconnectedness. I was a little bit concerned about the comments tonight about bureaucratic delays because I don't think we've had a presentation in quite a while, and I think there's an openness to have more information. In fact, just in terms of moving things forward, I asked before the meeting for both the operating and capital budgets and also the sort of SWOT analysis with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of like the co-location versus the at a school versus buying a separate building, because none of that really discussion has happened in a public board meeting. And if something has, as if you sat tonight, listen to all the hard choices we're going to be making around the budget to just understand, I think just putting on the table in a public meeting, what the implications are for the district in terms of not just the capital, but also the longer term. So obviously if we have a building and are operating it and we own it, that comes with it financial implications. So understanding that. So I don't think there's an attempt to delay things. It is, but also we have to be fiscally responsible and just understanding and stewards and understanding sort of what it is that is coming along with whatever direction we head, whether it's an individual building or co-located at schools. Many of the presentations have had references to district staffing and district budget allocations, and maybe this also goes to Karanja's earlier comment about how do things interconnect so we can see those pieces instead of having it be a separate thing. But the reality is a lot of those items could potentially have budget implications, so we just need to understand that and how it fits with other things. It also, just along those same lines, if we have a building or a school that we need to operate, is like what are the commitments? It would be good to understand what commitments we have from our partners, because at the end of the day, if the district is an owner of a facility, like we're at the end of the responsibility of that, so just to better understand that as well. So I would say, like, with all due speed, come bring that conversation on so that the work that's happening can move forward. Again, and so that's what I would need to see, and I think as a public entity that we need to just publicly share and have a discussion about, as we do with all of our expenditures. But I really like the pieces that you're piloting, and I hope you'll come back sooner rather than later, and so next time you don't have to talk so fast to know, better understand that, but again, also having the financial piece as well, and like the decision around whether we co-locate or whether it's a separate building. Thank
Director
you.
Brim Edwards, I deeply appreciate that comment, and I just want to also shout out the incredible work that Quinn has been doing, one, to put this presentation together tonight, but the load that he has been carrying behind the scenes to make sure that what you had tonight was robust and incredible. I thank you for that and your comments. We will ensure that we get back to you with the answers of some of those implications, allocations, and the obligations on our budget.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Oh, Director Hollins?
Yeah, I thought you was calling on everybody first.
Sorry, Director.
I just had a couple questions. One, when we talked about student achievement on page 6, it seems like we're continuing using the same measurements that we've been using. Have there been any thoughts about other measurements besides standardized testing?
So, is it still on? Jeez. So, outside of the standardized testing, which is one of the things that are underneath that area, again, in some of those focus groups we'll be having, we want to ask, what does achievement look like for students, our teachers, our families, and how are we measuring that? We do currently have some mock survey materials, focus group questions put together that we'd be happy to share with you all as the board if you're just looking for more information on what those questions look like, but definitely want to take a different approach than just sending out a survey and saying, give us your feedback, because if I've been in some of these school buildings, I hear students a lot say, okay, we're getting another survey, we're going to fill it out, we may not see the impact, so we really want to be in front of these students administering these questions and surveys so that we know that, so that they know that we're willing to hear their feedback and make changes in accordance to that.
Right. Are we going to be using any other measurements like grades or classroom assessments or even like the MAP assessment that we do? Are we going to be incorporating those as well?
I believe those will be a part of the conversation. I think there are also measures that we haven't even thought about at this point that'll be a part of that process, and that'll be a little bit further down the line.
Okay. Second question is, I heard Karanja Cruz talk about the culture in the classroom. How have that impacted this report that you just gave?
So I'm a lead on the culture in the classroom group, and so when I'm sitting in space with our design team, our guiding council, or even we have our community engagements, we have one tomorrow, I listen to a lot of the feedback that's coming from our Black and Native families that we have present there, and then try to incorporate much of that into what we're doing in this work with the CBSE, because the CBSE is actually a partner in that work and a sponsor of that work, and so we take that work very seriously and integrate it as much as we can into what we're doing.
And then my last question, and I have a closing comment, and this is probably for staff. Do we know a timeline when a director that's going to be hired?
No, thank you for that question, Director Hollins. I am just still getting acclimated and trying to understand a little bit of where our budget is, and so no, but I will have an answer for that.
Okay. And just kind of a closing remarks, I am so excited that this is moving forward. When I came on board, this was almost 2 years in that there hadn't been any movement. So I can kind of understand where they talk about, some kind of the bureaucratic delays that have been perceived. This is a great undertaking that hasn't happened before. So I think, when you're looking at something of this magnitude, grace, has to come into play because we're doing something that hasn't been done before. Kind of speak to, I think it was a question around the community engagement pieces and some of those outcomes that came from there. Camille, who's in the audience, did a great report on that and what the findings were. So I asked my colleagues to please go look at that so they can get a better understanding of what the community wanted, what some of their priorities was. I happened to go to a few of them during those times. And, some of those feedback comments was a standalone place. And from my understanding of when this bond came to be, it was a concept that the community was supposed to be leading on. And so one of those priority pieces was a standalone community center to make sure that our kids had something not just after school, but also could be on weekends as well, and during the summer to help ease that learning loss that happens during those times. And so I just implore our board members to go read those reports that Camille spent years on getting done a marvelous job. I hate that we lost her. But I just think we moving forward, and it's a great thing that we're moving forward, and I just really looking forward to the good work that's going to be happening.
Thank you, Director Hollins. I just want to check in with Director Green.
So I think that this is absolutely amazing. I'm glad that we're actually here. I've been on the board now for 4 years, and I'm excited that we might actually be able to get this done in my first, my full first term. I often say that it's easy to talk about doing it. It takes a little bit more effort and intentionality to actually do the work. And that's what we're doing right now. We're actually doing the work. We're going to stop. We need to stop talking about, it would be great if we had this. It would be great if we were able to pull this off. We actually can pull it off. We have the funding that was allotted for it. We have space available to us. We have a community that is eager to get it. We have students that we know can benefit from it. Now it's time to just get off the pot and actually do what we can do so that we can get this move forward so the community can benefit from it and start benefiting from it soon, in a time when we need it. We need a space where we can come together. We need a space that we can call home. We need a space where we can share our gifts and explore different opportunities. So I'm excited for this. I'm excited for the conversation, and I look forward to how this is going to transform our students on tomorrow. And thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to answer that. So whatever we spend on the building, obviously, from the bond funds goes towards the building. All other funds are put back into our general bond fund that we can use to improve other facilities. Or it has to stay bond, yeah, bond dollars for buildings. Unfortunately, we're not able to use it to impact the learning environment. And I want to thank the team for coming forth, and I just wanted to, I heard Julia's, Director Brim Edwards' question about other ask, and so it would be great to hear direction from the board on what you all would like to hear next, so that this conversation can mature.
I'm happy to jump in. I mean, asked before this meeting is just to see the specific sort of and the sort of long-term financial plan. So if you buy a building or make some substantial improvements, that creates a long-term commitment, and obviously a space with no programming doesn't make a lot of sense. So understanding the financials of what that implies, and also to be able to see how it's integrated into our school communities. And sorry, one last thing. The other thing that I would want to see is, so having been on the board when this got referred, and also leading the bond campaign, there were a lot of things that were talked about, but it was also talked about a constellation of school campuses. So I do think the question of is it going to be located at a school? How do we serve how does a non-school location serve students? Needs to happen, so that we, and especially if it's connected to sort of a financial ask. So that's what I would want to see. But to me, that's a straightforward. It's somewhat like Director Splitt's question.
Thank you, Director DePass.
Yeah, I just, so there are other very, very large development efforts happening all over the country that have some kind of economic or racial benefit. I'm thinking of places like Philadelphia, Leimert Park in Los Angeles. And so this is kind of one of those, it's not in 5 years we'll be done. This is a 50-year, 100-year investment in the community that's been kind of ravaged by the freeway and all the other development that's happened in the 50s and 60s. And so I I don't have anything that I need to see from it. I'm trusting that, when we're all gone, the work is still going to continue to bring back this area where some wealth building opportunities can happen, some home ownership opportunities can happen, and we can have a safety corridor for the kids and the grandkids and the people that live here now and lived here in the past.
Thank you. Student Representative Katsavi?
Yeah, I think the three things I think I would like to have is just like the cost and amount of staff, and like a specific timeline to not only be shared with the board, but also our community, and then just more student engagement on this project.
I don't think I've heard anything specific that I share those questions. Nothing specific on my mind that hasn't been brought up, except for just wanting to hear. We've been hearing about a tone of urgency in the public testimony, and I know I feel that too. And so just being responsive to that when we talk next. What's the next step? How do we get this done? How do we get things going as quickly as we can based on the feedback we're hearing? Thank you.
Director Hollins?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you have any guidance for like future updates that would help?
No.
Director Green?
No, I don't have any additional updates that I would need outside of when can we get started?
So that means me last. I guess two questions is just how can I help? And also it'd be nice to, I know it's kind of soft at this moment, but it'd be nice to also have like, I don't know, maybe like a list of like community partners that are excited to help out, just so that we have like I know that you mentioned it here and there and it's been mentioned all over the place, but nice to be in one spot shows like these are our community partners, potential community partners that could help run the place and staff it and fund. I think that would be very helpful to kind of see it all in one place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. It's very helpful. We will now move. Do people need like a 2-minute bathroom break? Stand break? All right, let's do 2 minutes. Be very quick. 2 minutes on the dot. So at 8:53, we will be back.
Did we make it on time? No, we didn't.
He didn't. That's okay. I'm a forgiving person.
So Director Wong?
Yep.
Before we start, this is like a point of personal privilege. At the beginning of the meeting, you talked about executive sessions, and having sat in more than 100 executive sessions, our executive sessions aren't courtesy sessions at all. They're an opportunity for us to be briefed, ask questions, have a discussion, sometimes set direction, but they're definitely not courtesy sessions. So I just want to correct the record because I feel like it implies that those are sessions in which staff can have them or not, but there usually is a very specific purpose, and you have executive sessions because of what statute says we can
Okay, well, that's something we can discuss offline. All right, moving on. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Board members, if there's any items you would like to pull from the consent agenda for a separate vote, please indicate that now.
Have you removed the ones that I asked for in advance?
Yes.
Okay. Then
Ms. Bradshaw, are there any changes to consent agenda?
I will say, you can move ahead, you can move the Jackson field trip with the rest of the consent agenda.
Okay. Then you,
I have
okay.
more data, I'm gonna supply at a different date.
All right, Sharon, do we need to move that back on? Do I have a motion and a second to do that, or?
Yes, that would be the
Okay.
best.
So moved.
Thank you. We have Director Split moves and was it Director Brim Edwards seconds. Moving resolution. Sorry.
7069.
Oh, I thought it was 7056. The Jackson Choir to New York. That's why I have it in my board.
Yeah,
Okay.
7056.
5-6.
All right, we have a motion and a second to move resolution 7056 back into the consent agenda. All in favor, please, we're going to vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed indicate no. Student Representative Consavi?
Yes.
Thank you. We have moved the resolution 7056 back into the consent agenda with a vote of 6-0 and Student Representative Consavi voting yes. Okay, now we will do I have a motion and a second to adopt consent agenda as amended?
Chair Wong.
Oh.
I apologize before you move forward. We would like to go back and look at that resolution number for the separate Jackson field trip. I believe there's an error in board book, and that it should actually be 7069.
7069. Thank you. So since we already voted, we have to redo it, right? All right.
I don't think you need to revote. I think it's clear that it's a clerical correction that's resolution 7069
Okay.
regarding the Jackson field trip. There was a motion and a second, and all voted in favor to move it back to the consent agenda. So I think it's now clear on the record, and you're fine.
All right, great. Resolution 7069 is now moved back onto the consent agenda.
Yes, sir.
So now do I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Director DePass moves and Director Split seconds the adoption of the consent agenda as amended. Is there any board discussion?
So just make sure that of all the consent agenda items, the two that have been removed is the contracts for Skanska and Hoffman, and also the resolution to approve a senior chief salary schedule.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. If there's no board discussion, the board will now vote on resolutions 7054 through 7057, 7059 through 7066, and 7070 through 7072, in addition to resolution 7069. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed indicate by saying no. Student Director Consavi, indicate your vote.
Yes.
Abstentions? The consent agenda as amended is approved by a vote of 6-0 with Student Representative Consavi unofficially voting yes. All right, next up, last week we had a request to pull 4, but now 3 resolutions off the consent agenda for individual consideration. The contract for the Hoffman construction, the contract for Skanska construction, and resolution to approve the senior chief's salary schedule. Kind of before we move on to that, I just want a big applause to Jackson Middle School for being invited to the National Youth Choir at Carnegie Hall. This is an invite, and not only that, but they are also singing one of their own songs, and so it's a very, very special occasion. And not only that, also remember Jackson, the ice storms last year that caused the damage, so a lot of Jacksons were working through portables, and so these students not only had to overcome these and the craziness of last year, but also achieved it and got invited to Carnegie Hall. So thank you. I want to appreciate Jackson Middle School Choir. And their choir director. Absolutely. All right. We will start with the resolution to approve a contract with Skanska Construction for pre-construction services for the Cleveland High School modernization. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 7067, expenditure contracts that exceed $150,000 for delegation of authority?
I have a quick question. Can
Yes,
we
go ahead.
combine those? Can we combine those two together so we don't have to do them separately?
You would have to make a motion and have it seconded, and then we can vote on it, yes.
I move that we combine the resolution, I don't have the numbers, that both the contracts that we have before us tonight into one resolution.
I second that.
Okay, we have Director Brim Edwards. Let me just be very specific. Director Brim Edwards has moved to combine Resolution 7067 and Resolution 7068 to a single vote. We have Director Green seconds. All right. I think we have to vote for it to be combined, correct? Right. So all in favor, we're going to vote. All in favor of combining Resolution 7067 and 7068 indicate by saying yes.
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 Yes. All opposed indicate by saying no. Student Representative Consavi?
Yes.
All right. The motion to combine Resolution 7067, 7068 to a single vote has been approved by a vote of 6-0, and Student Representative Consavi unofficially voting yes. So, is there any board discussion?
Yes, I have some questions, and I might have a possible amendment. I've shared, I'll just start with the potential amendment. I shared a freestanding resolution. I have a hard copies if I want to pass it down to you guys, but it could just be an amendment into the resolution. I can speak to that later. But first, I have a question, and they know this is coming, about the, thank you. This is specific to the contract, so there's been a fair amount of discussion and in the cost reduction framework that we had for the bond that the board passed recently, it talked about the reductions in the contracting, either like through the contracting method or at the contractor fee or the general consideration. And can you speak to where those cost reductions might happen or how they would happen? So we approved this contract tonight, and yet we still have the requirements around trying to get cost savings from the contracting method. So I'm wondering if you could share that.
Sure. Stormy Shanks, Senior Director, Office of School Modernization. Thanks for the question. So these contracts will approve the maximum value of the contract for pre-construction services, and those pre-construction services are invoiced to us on a time and materials basis. So if we want to reduce costs of pre-construction services, we can change the scope of those in an amendment to this contract if we decide to do that. The vast majority of the value of this contract will be added in amendments, mostly in the GMP amendment. And so at that time, we'll negotiate the cost of the GMP is the guaranteed maximum price of the cost of construction. So we can negotiate and amend the terms of the contract to try to save costs on general conditions. And then the contractor's fee is calculated as a percentage of the final GMP. So if we bring that GMP cost down by saving costs of construction through any strategy, that automatically brings the contractor's fee down as well. So we're in an effort right now to identify strategies to kind of control the costs of general conditions, and actually bringing these contractors on board will help us do that, because they can help us identify strategies that are going to improve schedule and costs of general conditions. through the pre-construction services. That's the benefit that we get from pre-construction services.
So one way that the cost goes down is just, for example, the board's requirement that the square footage be reduced.
Correct.
And not just across the board, that'll be an automatic. There's this other piece, and during sort of the RFP process, is there any way we can put caps on fees or fee guidance? Just curious about exactly how it's done in terms of like reducing the cost with the actual contractor.
Do you want to?
Other than the automatic, the size of the project is smaller, so they get a smaller percentage. A percentage of a smaller project.
The fee, yeah, so Dan Young, Chief Operating Officer, good evening. So the fee is established, the fee percentage is established via the procurement. So when an RFP is issued, the proposers, they submit a fee percentage, and they are scored on points based upon that. So they win the award based upon what they submit, and that is one of the criteria in which they are evaluated. And so that is a pretty straightforward fee, just as a percentage of the cost of work. As far as overall reducing expenses that go to the general contractor, as Stormy was noting, if we reduce the scope, that will then reduce the cost there. The bulk of the costs that are going to go to the project, to this contract, are reimbursable costs that are part of the CMGC. So it's open book contracting, if you will. So if it is an eligible cost, we effectively reimburse them. So it's the oversimplification, but the total cost of the contract is the reimbursable work plus the fee.
Director Hollins?
I'm just curious on if this passed tonight, what expenses will be incurred between approval tonight and May 20th?
And May 20th?
Yeah, by the time the bond passes. So from today to the time the bond passed, by approving this contract today, how much expenses are we looking to dole out between the two contracts?
We don't have the contract cash flowed in that way.
Correct. But it's not substantial dollars. I mean, they are going to begin the pre-construction services, so they're going to start looking at cost estimates, for example, of the work. They're going to start looking at constructability reviews. They're already supporting the cost analysis that's going on, so that's going to continue. So there will be some expenses, but they won't be substantive.
So they're doing this for free?
They're not doing it for free.
And we don't know how much they're going to charge us for it between now and then.
We know what their rates are. We don't know how many hours they're going to put in over the next 8-10 weeks.
Correct. The date of May 20th isn't a milestone in this contract, so it's not, they never have provided us in their proposal, they have not provided us with how much effort they're going to put into pre-construction services between now and May 20th, because that date isn't, it's not any particular milestone in the pre-construction phase.
So it's not a milestone. So if it doesn't pass, if the bond don't pass in May, that's not a milestone, that they will not be doing any more work, that they won't be doing any more pre-construction work after that, I would assume.
Pre-construction services are funded from the 2020 bond.
No, I got that. I got that piece. But I guess what I'm asking is that even though it was funded out of the 2020 piece, we're going to be giving out taxpayer funds now for that. But if it don't pass, I mean, those taxpayer funds is just gone in the wind.
No, pre-construction services we will have a benefit from that work product that we can carry forward when a bond would pass in a future year. So it wouldn't be thrown away work.
So I would love to know what that is. That would be great.
Sorry, what is?
I would love to know what that cost is going to be, because I thought I heard you guys say that they've been doing work already.
The Skansky and Hoppa both have been doing work under a small contract that scope was specific to supporting the cost analysis work that's been going on for the last several months. So that's a separate contract.
All right.
Director Green?
Thank you. So I've heard you say that we're still using the CMGC model, and with the CMGC model, what are we putting in place now to ensure that we don't continue to have the level of cost overruns that we have been having and we've been seeing with the projects? That's a question. You also mentioned that the way the system is, the way that it's set up now, is on a reimbursement process, and so they do some stuff, and then they come back and they say, yeah, this fits within the scope of what we're going to do, so therefore we can be reimbursed. But if we had a construction manager that was different from the general contractor, then the construction manager would be overseeing that general contractor to ensure that whatever it is that they're doing falls within a scope. And we don't have that now because they're both one and the same. So essentially, they're saying that, hey, yeah, we need to do this. And then they're saying, yeah, we should do this. And then we pay them for it. And then, so who's going to ensure that doesn't happen? Because based on what you just said, they could put in an unlimited number of hours at this point because they haven't told us how many hours they're going to put in. So they could come back to us and say, this is going to cost us, 300, 400 hours every other week or something. I don't know what they could come back with. And neither do you, because you said that we haven't talked about it. But I think that that's something that we want to get some level of control under so that we can identify what this cost is going to look like. And then moving forward, is it possible that we can have in the contract or in the documentation somewhere something that says that all change orders have to come back to the board for approval, or they have to come back to facilities and operation? Because the change orders is where all the cost overruns go. They create all these different change orders that we as a board never see. And then now we're $50-60 million over, and we got an issue. So what checks and balances are we putting in place? If we're not going to change the CMGC model, then what checks and balances are we going to put in place? Because currently what we're doing doesn't work. And it'd be great to say that it does, but it doesn't. And the fact that we have all these cost overruns and still delayed projects that aren't being completed on time, tells us that it's not working. So what are we going to do? What are we going to put in place so that we can ensure that we're not spending more than what we need to spend? I'm done.
That's a good question. Where to start? I think just a couple of points off the bat. So CMGC is when you compare the two most common types of contracting are design bid build, kind of traditional or standard or hard bid, it's got a bunch of names. And then CMGC, there are others, but those are the big ones in commercial construction, particularly for public improvement work. Design bid build is really the standard for small or large straightforward projects. The vast majority of PPS's contracting is design bid build. CMGC is really the standard for large, complex, or even small complex projects. It's been used for all the high school modernization projects. The cohort around school districts is very much the standard. Other public agencies, Multnomah County uses it extensively. The City of Portland uses it. It's really the standard for this type of work because it has a lot of benefits, which I won't enumerate. I know that the board has materials that talks about that. When it comes to costs, as I mentioned kind of very briefly, and it's an oversimplification, is one of the benefits of CMGC is visibility into the costs. So a CMGC is really only entitled to eligible costs, and the contract allows us visibility into their books and also allows us to audit. So we audit typically on a project twice. We do a progress audit, and then we do a final audit. And if there were a scenario where we overpaid for something, that audit would catch that, and then they'd be required to reimburse us. So it has much more visibility into costs. And then when it comes to changes to costs, so the board will see, well, if the board approves this pre-construction services, this will be an approval. And also when the guaranteed maximum price amendment comes forward, the board will approve that as well. And then any change order that exceeds the district's thresholds for changes that go to the board will also come to the board. So the district has, I'm going to forget offhand, but depending on dollar amounts, any change, amendment to a contract goes through different levels, from project manager to a senior director to chief level, to the superintendent and to the board. So those controls are already in place for the district, and they apply to all contracts, not just CMGC contracts. They apply to everything.
Yeah, so let me just clarify, just for everyone's understanding. So the pre-construction services is the contract for pre-construction work. And then when that's complete, there'll be another contract that comes back with the guaranteed maximum price of construction for each school site.
That is correct. There's a negotiated amendment, and that is the guaranteed maximum price.
So we'll be having this conversation another time once we get past the pre-construction.
Correct, the big one.
Phase, yes. Thank you.
When do you predict that's gonna happen? Assuming the bond passes, when would the guaranteed maximum price contracts come to the board for the 3 modernizations?
Well, it comes, there are contracts, say 50% CDs, I don't know what they say offhand.
I think it has a recommended level of development on the design drawings, but we need to come to an agreement with the awarded contractor on what point that is in the design. So we negotiate that with them. So it's, without having a executed contract with them, it's hard to know what we will agree on as far as the level of development. So the GMP amendment occurs during the design phase, and it's not at the very end of the design phase. It's at some milestone level of development.
And it could be different for the different projects. And so we might start construction with an early construction package, something relatively small usually, before we actually have the GMP. But so it's hard to say with specifics, because it depends on the project, and you need to have a contract in place and then the schedule established too, to speak with more specifics.
I'm just curious, typically how long does it take?
Yeah, this summer, this fall, I mean, just ballpark. I'd love to know exactly, but
Next spring, ballpark. You okay with that stuff? Shooting from the hip. I mean, it's latter in design, because you want as much specificity as possible, but shooting from the hip.
So it would be 50% of the construction drawings completed, then.
Right,
Okay.
so.
Or 25%.
Or somewhere, right?
Or-
There will be a
yes.
set that is issued, and that is the GMP set, and that is what is cost estimated from the third-party cost estimator, as well as the CMGC, and then you reconcile those estimates.
Director Smith, do you have any questions?
Hotel balcony, wondering what it's like.
I guess I just have one question. Just when Director Green was talking, there was, I don't know, I'm trying to say this as neutrally as possible. There was, he was saying, what I heard him saying was that this model is not working. But my understanding is that maybe some of our high schools were completed on time and on budget. Is that true? Like, what's the general performance here? Can you give that, or is it not something you could share off the top of your head?
Yes, and I think there's lots of ways to answer that, and the performance of a project depends on a million factors, not just the delivery method. But just as an example, the two most recent completed projects, where they're completed and they're finalized, are Lincoln High School, McDaniel High School. Most of those projects were completed on time and under budget, and those were CMGC projects.
Thank you.
Director Green.
I believe that's an old hand and it's not gone.
No, it's a new one. It's a new one. So
Sorry.
you mentioned that Lincoln Lincoln and McDaniels came in on time and they came under budget. Did we also have the same process in place with the other schools that didn't come in on time and on budget? So I mean, it's great to point out the ones that did, but we've done several. So if we're going to talk about it, we need to talk about it all the way around and not just the ones that make us look favorable. So again, my questions are, if we have an audit, if we have the ability to audit, and we audit twice, and we do this on multiple different times, then how did we not catch the cost overruns? How did we not know that we were going to be $50 million over if we have all this stuff set up and in place, and that we do we're looking at the change orders that meet the minimum, whatever the minimum board number is, and I'm wondering if that's the 150,000. So anything that's less than 150,000, the board doesn't have to vote on. And then if that's the case, how many change orders came in close to 150,000, but not quite enough to get the board attention? That's why I said I would want to see all the change orders. And then you also mentioned the guaranteed maximum price. I'm gonna pause on this one because I actually want to answer before I make a statement. The guaranteed maximum price, is that something new that we've done, or is that something that we've done with all of our buildings?
Good questions. A couple of things. I think there can sometimes be a distinction between, so a CMGC contractor gets paid costs that they're eligible for. So they're costs that are specific to the project that are allowed via contract. And sometimes there are legitimate costs that go above the project budget, whether it be unforeseen conditions or something. So projects, regardless if it's CMGC or otherwise, when you're in the project, there can be costs that become known. Those are eligible costs. That is the owner's risk. There is also in instances where a contractor will submit a change order that is not accepted. And so sometimes I think we're hearing some numbers of really big numbers. Those have not been approved. Those have been requested and submitted, but those have not been approved. So the district has not approved, I can't think of any of large numbers
So we're not
over
going
a
to pay
project
$50 million.
budget. I'm sorry, Director Green, I didn't hear that.
So we're not going to pay that $50 million.
A claim has been submitted, it has not been resolved.
So there's still a chance that we're going to pay the $50 million.
I do not know what that resolution is
Okay.
going to be.
All right, that's fine. So now answer the question about the guaranteed maximum price. Is that something that we have with all of our schools?
A GMP amendment is a standard part of any project using the CMGC contracting method, yes.
Okay, so if we have a guaranteed, the key word here in my basic understanding is the word guaranteed, and then the next key word is maximum. So we have a guaranteed maximum that says we guarantee that it will not go above this. Why are we paying anything above that? Ever, under any circumstances? See, these are the things that I want to understand. I'm trying to understand, because all the money that we put into this is money that we can put back into our elementary schools. This is money that can go back into our middle schools. This is all money that we can get back in other places that desperately need some love and attention. There's absolutely no reason why we should be spending $500 million on a single solitary high school. There's never in my mind. You said that, according to what you stated, that the design bid build was a process that was done on most large projects, large or whatever the case, or the CMGC was something that was done on mostly all large projects. But in New York, in California, in Seattle, they're all using the design bid build. They're all using that, and they're doing larger projects, and they're spending less money. I'm trying to figure out, how do we get to the place where we can get the top of the line school and not spend all the money? Somebody is getting over on us. I don't know who it is, but somebody is getting over and I don't want to be got over on. We need every dime that can be saved. We need to figure out how to keep it in our schools so that that money can go back to help other schools. So I don't want to spend $500 million on a single school.
May I call for the order of the day to keep us on track? So we have, I believe, a motion on the table.
I just have
sorry,
one last
but-
question, then we are going to call for a vote. We are past time.
I'm going to offer an amendment. I think I already
Okay,
said,
let me
so-
just ask my one question. Will not approving this contract today potentially delay Cleveland and Ida B. Wells? Or, wait, is this for Jefferson? Potentially delay our projects?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Brim Edwards, you have a motion you wanted to
I do.
propose.
And I'm going to start by saying I'm supporting, and I've been clear from the beginning, I'm going to support the contracts tonight. I want the projects to move forward, and I want the bond to be successful. And because I want the bond to be successful, earlier I'd asked for a timeline of the major milestones between now and construction start, and specifically, I'm very concerned about the timelines over the next 2 months. Because I think, as we heard tonight, there's a lot of uncertainty about the bond. We heard from a student who's a committed supporter of the modernization, but a question about what actually the school is going to contain. And we also heard from a former board member with questions about the decision to move forward just generally. When I look at the one pager, it says we have a 1.1 billion for the rebuilds and modernization, and then it lists like 4 things. That's a pretty big category. And I think for most people, and I think that includes almost everybody in the school community, it's unclear about how we're going to land this bond in the sense of making cost reductions so that we have funds available for elementary and middle schools, repair improvements, and at the same time, so fiscal constraint, and build the high schools that we said we were going to build, but with cost reductions. And I know that, and I'm going to offer an amendment that is, just to give everybody a heads up, is the resolved portion with a couple changes. So you can just skip the recitals because we have already a resolution before us. But the reason I'm offering this, which really lays out over the next several board meetings, updates on some specific topics about how we're going to deliver cost reductions, but at the same time, deliver the schools that we said we're going to deliver, which is a modernization. Keep moving, Deborah.
Get to the motion, please.
I'm getting there. I'm explaining what it is. And because when I went to the Cleveland DAG meeting last week, I heard how thoughtfully we're going to move through the process and how we're going to deliver the project and the cost reductions and still deliver the things that the Cleveland school community wanted. And I feel right now we have very little between now and when we're asking voters for frankly, a huge ask. And yes, it's a tax rate renewal, but that's a pretty significant rate that it is just in and of itself. And I think we owe it to people, and we owe it first to the school communities that they understand what they're voting on, like whether they're getting the school that they thought they were going to get. And the broader community needs to understand whether we're going to have cost savings, which we've told them they're going to have, and maybe generally how much they're going to be, as well as that money will be spent on elementary and middle schools. So the resolution, the resolved would be, and I don't think I need to read it. I'll just tell you that I would have the first 3, which are laying out the March 18th board meeting, the April 8th board meeting, and the April 15th board meeting. Really specifics on the process so people understand what's happening behind the scenes, because essentially we said we're going to go get cost reductions, and then most information just disappeared, and the last we heard is that we're going to get it on May 1st. So really this is setting out mainly a process by which our school community and voters and taxpayers will be able to see sort of the process by which we're moving through this. And I have a lot of confidence in our team, again, based on the meeting I went to the other night, that they'll be able to lay out where we can make reductions and where we can't, where it might compromise the schools. So it would be 1, 2, and 3, and then the fourth, I would eliminate number 4, because it sounds like that's the guaranteed maximum price, and that's going to happen next year. But I would add a different number 4, just regular reports and updates on the cost reductions will be brought to the board through the end of May. I think that's the minimum requirement that we have, and frankly, our next meeting is 6 days before the voters pamphlets deadline, and we can't have more meetings where people don't understand, and out in the broader community where people are confused about the size of the high school, what we're offering, and what our process is. And to me, this lays out just a process by which we'll be able to provide that, as much information as we have, which is, I think, what we owe our community between now and the election.
So,
I have a point of clarification.
yes, Director Green?
It's Hollins. So
Oh,
are
sorry,
we not
Director
going
Green has
to
his
get,
hands up, sorry.
well, I have a point of clarification though.
Go for it.
So
Director
are
Hollins.
we not going to finish answering the questions I was asked?
No, we're trying to move to a vote, and then Director Brim-Edwards proposed a motion, or put a motion on the table. The
I
motion
can't
is-
vote without my questions being asked.
We need to vote on this, or sorry, we need to see if there's a second to this motion first, and if we vote on this motion first to move it off the table, or onto the table or off, and then we can vote on the original question of the contracts. So is there, the motion?
Point of information.
Yes.
So are you saying we're going to do a second on the get a motion and a second on the motion that Director Brim-Edwards has, and then we're going to answer the question that Director Green had?
I think what he said
I think
is that we would vote on the amendment, up or down, and then we'd have, there's been a calling of the question, but calling the question, I think, can be, we can call for a vote about whether we want to end debate, because the debate only ends when a majority of the board decides it should be ended.
I think you have to appeal it, but yes. Okay, so we are now, there's a motion on the table.
I didn't get clarification on my point of information.
We are going to see if the motion is seconded, and then we will vote on it if it goes up or down. If it is approved or not, then we will go and vote on the contracts. All right, the motion is in the document that Director Brim-Edwards, I just want to be clear, has provided under therefore it be resolved, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5.
And a new number
Is there-
4, a replacement number 4 would say regular reports and updates on the cost reductions will be brought to the board through May 30th,
And that.
31st.
Is there a second?
Can I ask a question?
Second.
Okay, there we go, never mind.
We need a second first, and then we can discuss it. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, this is on the table. Board questions. One each, please.
I'm going to make a comment and then ask a question of this person. I asked permission. So first, just my comment is I think I'm really comfortable having this sort of regular reporting cadence. Everything that's laid out here is information I think that would be really helpful. I think that I'm trying to think of how to say this as diplomatically as I can. And so if it doesn't land that way, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best here. But I think that the more that we are arguing and sort of continuing to relitigate questions, I think that the harder it's going to be to do the good work that I know the chair and Director Brim-Edwards and the rest of us are all doing to actually pass the darn thing. So I want to say that I'm totally fine with this resolution, but every time we have these updates, I hope that we can consider how our attitudes about the bond are reflecting overall on the desire we have to both pass the darn thing. Everyone here voted for it. I didn't, but I would have. And And so balancing that with the desire to like have accountability and be good fiscal stewards. So I think I hope we can find that balance and try to approach this work with that in mind, like with like a helpful attitude and a good stewards of public dollars attitude hand in hand. And with that, I would like to ask the question too of this, since this is all new to all of us, the superintendent looking at this document, do you have any things that you would think might make it more doable, or do you have any things that you would maybe change about it to make it so that you feel it's workable, or do you feel this is workable as is to help the community see the progress we're making on like accountability and the Cornerstone report? Someday I'll get it right. Did I get it right? Yeah, Cornerstone report.
Yeah, it's a great question. I fully support the resolution. I think that we can meet the expectations. I was thinking, like the guaranteed maximum price, I just wonder if there's like a guaranteed presentation time, only because the amount of time and effort that the staff puts in. So I think I'll probably build some parameters around how we receive questions, and then and then the answering of that on those dates that's specified, because I'm sure you all want more work going into the actual bond program than the preparation for the meetings. But I actually think this is really good, and I appreciate Director Burm-Edwards for bringing it forward, and we're happy to be available for presentation and questions within that guaranteed maximum time frame.
And just to clarify, we replaced that when the old number 4, because they said it wasn't going to probably be till next year. So
No, maybe I was being facetious. I was just saying that I love this. We will be prepared, and I just want to make sure that there aren't expectations that, you know, these are like 2-hour reports and question and answer. So anything we can do to receive the questions with the expectation that the response to those questions will be on these days, and not, you know, separate work where we're responding over multiple days, because these are short windows. And so I really want to support the team in being able to do the work of the schools and the bond. But we support it. We're ready to go.
Thank you. I just would like to recognize myself. Thank you. So I have some issues with this. One thing I do want to also throw out there is that, you know, because of the timeline, I am willing to, if we do not approve this tonight or would like to postpone it, I am totally open to having our work session to actually have some proposals of this resolution then. I worry about having this passed right now because this was literally sent to us 38 minutes before our scheduled meeting, which means two things. Number one, we didn't have time, most of the board did not have time to go over this and have a chance to kind of review it. Number two, staff has not had a chance to go over, review it to see if there's any unintended consequences that could come from it. Number three, because it was done so right before the meeting, we also don't have a chance for public comment in case there are public comment and, you know, noticing. So I worry this is a very dangerous precedent to have a resolution to be put so close. And not only that, but it doesn't necessarily directly relate to Resolution 7067 nor 7068. And it is, you know, a different topic. So my thing is, if this resolution does not approve tonight, I am totally fine with us revisiting this resolution and other proposals in our work session meeting in 2 weeks. And the reason for that is because I am allowing that exception because, yeah, election day is coming up and we need to figure something out. And there are some, I do want to say I am not against the idea. I think there are some good ideas in here, and I think there are some ways here that could actually help solve the problem, help the team in terms of like guiding the design advisory groups and kind of putting the onus on the board instead of the staff. So I think there are some good ideas here. I am requesting that if we do not pass this, we have more time next to actually review and kind of consider proposals for our next meeting. So I will be voting a no.
Okay.
I'd like to respond to that also. You've already spoken. We got this at like 5:22 or 5:32, and I, like you, really enjoy, I have to read everything twice. I have a reading disability. And so I need to read everything twice. I need to read it slowly, and I also need to read it when people aren't talking. It's just hard for me to track. And so I did see the email come in, but I was traveling, and I haven't had time to really digest this the way that is best for me. I like it generally. I'd also think that it would be better with more time. And so I'm not going to support it tonight, but I would love to workshop it and make sure that it's going to work for everybody.
Couple things. So I asked for a timeline on February 24th. I got a response that there wasn't going to be a timeline. I asked again, and I got another response, like actually no response. I asked the superintendent and OSM for that. And because I became concerned when the communication went out to the broader school community that on May 1st, that was when we're going to get the update, which of course people will have ballots in their hand, way too late. I'm very opposed to having a work session because I think it'll do exactly what Director Split just mentioned. First of all, this should have been done in January, and the fact that we don't have this, we haven't had a functioning facilities committee that's meeting on a regular basis. It wasn't even on the agenda item, and frankly, this afternoon at 3 o'clock, it's like, we're gonna have a bond update that got added to the agenda. And so, and these, the contracts were added to the agenda later as well. So if this had been front-loaded in the process when we actually should have done it, I wouldn't have had to bring it. And frankly, I got concerned because I'd asked for a timeline that bumped things up earlier in the process, and I didn't get a timeline. So, and then I had asked to have this on the board agenda. The board agenda that was sent out to the board members, it wasn't on it. I asked again before agenda setting, got no response. And so I sat down this morning and drafted the agenda and drafted something that was responsive. And I frankly think this is like the bare minimum that we need to communicate to our community. It's useful information. Like I say, I left, and there was big information that was shared at the Cleveland meeting, and because the community had an opportunity to like hear about it and kind of work through it, like they left on the other side with a, yeah, let's like keep going. And I feel like our broader community needs that. Yes, thank you for validating that. I mean, it was hard. I think when we left the meeting, you were like, I'm processing this, but everybody's moving forward. And I think that's what our community needs to do, because otherwise, we haven't had one person come sit here besides the, Cleveland team and say they support the bond. And this is giving our community needed information. So I would hope that the superintendent's saying that she thinks that this is a doable thing. Of course, Stormy and Dan, if you you think this isn't doable, or there's a piece that's not doable, share it.
If I may, I think we certainly understand the need for urgency, and we are more than happy to provide updates and provide the best information that we have available. And no, we're not going to be able to meet board material cutoffs for the March 18th. The cutoff's 2 days from now. In the March 18th, we're not going to have good cost data yet. I just like expectations. We're happy to bring like the best we got. We will bring the teams that they will present, and we'll talk through those things. But the reason that we were targeting when the question is what's like the next step with the board was March 1st, because that was, or May 1st, or before May 1st was the time that the teams needed to receive the information that was provided from the board, meet with stakeholders, prepare design options, get feedback from district leadership, because we have district leadership that needs to get that information, make decisions, then send it to third-party cost estimators. All those things take time. And what I'm absorbing is more updates, even if it doesn't have as much detailed information, will be helpful. And so we're happy to do that. I just want to make sure, expectations-wise, some of it's going to be hot off the presses, if that's acceptable.
And I appreciate that you might not be able to meet our own requirement for 12 days in advance. We don't have that kind of time with this schedule.
Right.
So thank you for setting an expectation that it might be less than what we're thinking, or maybe some of us are thinking very detailed, and some of us are okay with more broad information.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I think I just assumed that so I just assumed what Dan, I'm sorry, I just want to call him Dan, but yes, I'm sorry. Um, that we would bring whatever we had available to share. And I guess I just wonder, I hear the posting deadline, that's a real thing. If we can just meet whatever is legally required to post for a public meeting, I think that can solve that. And I wonder, if there's a timeline that we can commit to, if there isn't any comfort with the resolution, is there just a timeline that we can commit to for our next public meetings that we have? And we'd be prepared to bring whatever is available and post it during the legally required time to post.
Director
I'm
Split, and
fine
then we're
with
going
just
to
a legal requirement for posting. I think
Yeah,
it's
and-
very reasonable.
And I think what I might have just heard is an offer to do what's laid out in the resolution with the public notice piece added without a resolution. And I also hear we have people on the board who aren't comfortable with voting on the resolution tonight, which would then delay when the work would start if we have to wait for the resolution. So I'm wondering if we can feel comfortable with this. This is the plan, we're going to do this, you get the timeline, but maybe not the resolution, just so we can keep moving, and then we can do the resolution next time if you want, so that way everybody can be comfortable with moving forward in that helpful, team-spirited fashion I'm hoping we can find.
Okay, Director Hollins.
Yeah, I just want to, I'll be supporting this as well. I think it's just common sense to have reports, knowing that it's not going to be, a full comprehensive reporting all the time, but just making sure, what Director Split was talking about, getting this stuff done and how we present to the community. This is one of those ways that we present to the community. This is one of those ways that we get community buy-in to pass the bond. And so something that's so common sense like this, it should be a no-brainer that we put something out here, we get regular reports, especially since we do have a short window, since we have a short window. I don't see the big issue with getting some reports to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward to do have our due diligence as we're doing this stuff. And I'm going to speak to Director Split's comment. Doing due diligence, having questions to get understanding is never a issue. It should never be an issue, especially when you look at other municipalities that have rushed things, that have not done things, and have overspent or misspent. We need to make sure that we are getting an understanding of what we're doing, so we are not in that position. So we're not in that way of using taxpayer funds differently than they was intended for.
All right, thank you. We will now vote on resolutions presented by Director Brim Edwards, numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, and the modified number 4.
Are we just voting on the amendment?
Just on the amendment.
Chair,
Or
there
sorry,
isn't clarity in number 3. You need to, excuse me, April 15th or April 22nd, just for resolution purposes.
April 15th.
Okay.
For number 3, April 15th. Thank you. So we will now vote on the amendment as proposed by Director Brim Edwards in documents number 1, 2, 3 with the addition or edit of April 15th, number 5, and number 4 with the amendments. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed, please indicate by saying no.
No.
No. Student Representative Consavi, your vote?
Yes.
Abstentions? All right, the amendment has passed by a vote of 4-2, with Student Representative Consavi voting yes. All right, now we will move to the vote of resolutions 7067 and 7068 as amended.
I believe that Director Hollins still was asking about it, and I know there was a call to call a question, but I think that's open to discussion, not just necessarily shutting it off.
Are you asking to appeal the call to question?
Yeah, I would like, does the majority of the board want to cut off the discussion to allow Director Hollins to get this green? I'm sorry.
Do I have a
Green.
second? Do I have a second for the appeal? I assume that's a second. Director Green seconds. All right, we will now vote on the appeal for the call to question. All in favor, please. A yes vote means that we will continue discussion. A no vote means that we will vote. All in favor of the appeal, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please indicate by saying no.
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 No. Student Representative Kasabi.
Yes.
Okay, well, it is 3-3 tie. I don't know what that means.
I think that.
So I think it passes because we have Student Representative
I'll
Kasabi
shift.
voting yes.
I'll shift mine to a.
Okay.
If I can get Dan to acknowledge in the while he's at the dais that he's going to send me an email indicating that what other schools did we have maximum price agreements for all of our other schools and how we dealt with the cost overrun. I really just want my questions answered. That's why I'm not ready to close it up. But if he can send me the answers to that, then we can move forward. I was going to vote for it. I don't have a problem with what we're doing. I know that we need to get this done. I mean, it's an absolute must that it has to happen. But at the same time, we also need transparency. We need to be able to show our community that we value every dollar that comes in, and we're going to make sure that we do exactly what needs to be done with it, and they can take that all the way to the bank. That's what I want from them.
It's fine. The appeal has passed, so we can ask questions and continue the discussion.
Will you send an email?
I will send an email. I will commit to that.
Director Hollins?
Okay, well,
Thank you,
I
Dan.
have like 5 more questions.
What's that?
I was saying that we're not supposed to direct staff, but maybe we'll make an exception this time. But we can direct the superintendent to direct staff.
Director Hollins?
I was joking. I'm done. I don't got no more questions.
All right. Director Brim Edwards?
It's just
No more questions. All right. We will. Okay. What was all that for? So, for an email. That was great. All right. We'll now
I think
vote.
that's
Not
very
an email.
unprofessional, Eddie. I don't think that comment was necessary.
Oh,
It
I'm
wasn't for
sorry.
an email. It was for clarification.
Thank you for the
It was for
clarification.
transparency.
I was giving a start. Yeah. Thank you. All right. It is for clarification, and I apologize. Resolution 7067. Oh, sorry. We'll now vote on Resolution 7067 and Resolution 7068 as amended. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Student Representative Consavi, your vote. Abstentions. Resolution 7067 and 7068 as amended has passed by a vote of 6-0 with Student Representative Consavi voting yes. Next up we have, next up we have the resolution, where am I? 7058, the approval of senior chief salary schedule. Before we move that, I would like to make a motion to postpone this agenda item to a future board meeting.
So moved.
Okay.
Thank you. I have Director Wong moves and Director Split seconds.
Can you explain why you are moving it to a future board meeting?
The superintendent has indicated that more time to explore these options would be helpful.
I'm happy to answer that too, if that's okay, if that's
Sure.
appropriate. So I've gotten some really good questions about the cost savings, the reduction, separate from the reduction for our decline in enrollment and other cost-saving measures. And so I want to have an opportunity to prepare a more detailed report that shows a separate information on how we're reducing costs to create a structure that I feel will increase effectiveness and efficiency at central office. So I just need some time to prepare some documents and have a more detailed org chart so that you all can have the information you need to make a decision.
I want to speak to the motion. So I'm glad that's happening, because when I asked for the org chart, this seemed front-loaded when we're looking at a lot of school-based cuts to be front-loading salary increases at the most senior staff level. And the other concern I have is, like, last year, this was like removing the deputy superintendents, which is a similar, sort of similar position, was sold to the community of, we're reducing a layer. And that's the central office cost reduction, so a little bit it seems like it's coming back. So that will be a question I want to have answered. The other thing is, I'm concerned that we still have on the, the district is still paying the last permanent deputy superintendent since her departure. This is the deputy superintendent for business and operations. And she'll be on the payroll at least through June 30th, 2025. We've paid her firm over $200,000. So I'm concerned, just again, about, we were sold that they were going to, that the pain in schools, also, those are going to be pain in the central office. And one of the changes was we were going to be removing that layer. So those are some of the questions. Of course, I'm going to support postponement, because I didn't support having it here tonight, but I think we need to it needs to be laid out. We don't need to do it. It just needs to be shared, like how it makes sense and everything else we're doing, and then also at how it makes sense in terms of how we're pairing our contractors with our actual senior staff.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I want to make sure that it's clear. There's a couple things that I'll unpack, but not here. Obviously, that's not an agenda item. But we do want to make sure that we get clarification, because we're not continuing to pay for a deputy. And I know that an interim temporary superintendent came and made a decision about a structure and an organization that would impact the superintendent for years to come, and it was always expressed as if a superintendent coming in would have the decision, right? And so I remember, and I'm going to send the information, and I was thinking about this today, and I was remembering my interview day, and it was such a special moment. And I remember you all saying that one of the most important jobs that you all have as board members is hiring the superintendent. And I just hope that you all stand with me, that it's not just hiring, it's also about retaining and making sure that I'm able to do the job that I'm hired to do. I will tell you, having a direct report of 14 individuals will significantly impact my ability to be in classrooms, to participate in listening sessions, to be able to be out in field doing the work that we need to do. You know, by getting out early and often in our budget engagement, we were able to hear firsthand from educators, from principals, about some of the impacts that they were seeing. We went through those ISR reports to schools one by one and made significant changes. While we weren't able to give everyone everything at this moment, we're getting out, we're doing all that we can so that we can make sure that our classrooms are better places, not only for our students, but for our teachers and our support staff. So I am passionately excited and ready to bring back an item with more information, and I just hope that you all hold that, of course, the financial management or oversight, the stewardship of the district, the creating policy, but I want you all to remember what you said to me on the day that you hired me, which is that your most important job that you have as board members is hiring the superintendent. And I don't see myself here for a year or two. I see myself here for the next 10 years This is the place that I want to be, and I want to make sure that I'm supported and that I am hired to do a job that you need me to do. And so I look forward to bringing back the information that supports some of the things that I said.
May I share something really briefly, a little bit tangential? After our walkthroughs and our leadership, I went to lunch with a friend, and on the way out, was trying to scurry out, ran into 4 PAT members who were also having coffee, and they gave some really good feedback, and I think you should. They were like, "Gosh, we're seeing, Dr. Armstrong out in the schools. That's kind of rare," and I just wanted to share that with you, that it is being noticed. These were from, I'm trying to think, mostly North and Northeast Portland schools. So it's, you're out there and you're new still. You can still say you're new, and your service is being noticed.
Thank you.
I especially hear that from students as well.
Thank you. Director Hollins?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that as well. And this is, and I raised this question up during the time of when we had the interim superintendent, as far as, everyone we talked to when we went on, and this was when we had the interim superintendent, that it was a responsibility of the board to support the superintendent in making sure that he or she have whatever she needs to be successful. I was opposed for the interim superintendent making those type of personnel cuts. They did them anyway, because this is what you get now. You get a superintendent who's coming in who is not able to build the team that she needs to be successful for our kids. And that's the thing. These are our kids we want her to be successful for. And this is why you don't, and it's common practice, you don't have interim superintendents letting go key personnel that a superintendent usually comes in and builds around for them to be successful. I think that was one of our fails that we've done thus far. And so to deny a superintendent to come in to be able to build a team around her to be successful, to make sure our kids' academic levels are going up, I don't think that's the position we need to be in as a board. I think we need to and understand the optics. The optics is terrible, absolutely. But what's more terrible is the academic progress of some of our students, our Black kids, our brown kids, our Native American kids. That's the bad optics. Not that she needs some she needs some more support in order to do her job. That's the bad optic that we should be prioritizing, that we should be worried about. Not what it looks like during a $40 million deficit. Everything we should be focusing on is our students. Our students is the one that we have to do a literacy program for. Our students is the ones that we have to raise math skills for. Our students is the one we have to have for CTE and getting them up to par to be ready for the workforce. Not whether a superintendent needs some additional support and help to do her job. That's what our focus should always be, is our kids. Not what it looks like, not what it looks like politically, not what it looks like just to everyone else. What everything we should be focusing on is what our kids are. And our kids are not performing the way that they need to be, and that should be our motive. That should be our motivation, our North Star, to making sure that we have, just like we want our teachers to have everything they need to make sure our kids are successful, we need to make sure our superintendent has everything she needs to be successful, because at the end of the day, the kids is the one that suffers from people not having support.
Thank you, Director Hollins. All right. Appreciate your comments. We are, unless there's other board discussion, we will now vote on the motion. Sorry. We'll vote on Resolution 7058 to be postponed to a future board meeting. Is that, no?
I'm sorry,
motion.
did you have a motion for that? Just
Yes,
I thought
we
we
already
moved
had the
it.
motion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's okay.
All right. Yeah. So the motion, and it was seconded. Yes. So the motion. Yeah. So now we are voting on the recommended proposal to move Resolution 7058 to a future board meeting, postpone. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no.
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 Student Representative Kunsavi?
Yes.
All right. The proposal to postpone Resolution 7058 to a future meeting has been approved by a vote of 4-2, with Student Representative Consavi unofficially voting yes. For the sake of time, I am asking the rest of the board members if you be okay if we move the board committee and conference reports and other business to our work session in 2 weeks.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
All right. All right, with that, then this meeting is adjourned.